I've got some weird things
Okay, it's 4:30. Why don't we into the meeting with Bois County Council? You want to join us in a pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So first on the agenda here, I guess we got the board reorganization. And I think you handle that, Sandy?
I think at this time, we will reorganize the county council. I will open the floor for the position of the president. Do I have any nominations? Are there any further nominations? Then we will close the nominations. I need a second.
I'll second.
There being no further nominations, Mr. Kleesner, will you accept the nomination?
Yes, I will.
Okay. I need all of you to vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, congratulations. Now I will open the floor for nominations for vice president.
I'll nominate Craig.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any further nominations? There being no further nominations, Mr. Gollick, you're elected as vice president. Do you accept the position?
I do.
Okay. So your officers will be Mike Kleesner and president and Craig Grolick vice president. I'll let you take back over.
Well, thank you for putting your faith in me this year, so appreciate it. Okay, so next on the agenda here is the meeting minutes of December 29th. I think they were sent to us. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 29th for the Bois County Council as presented.
I'll second that.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So I think first on the agenda here, we got Bois County Abuse Council. Jenna?
Good afternoon, everyone. Got a hand up for you. My name is Jenna Beaker, and I am the chair-elect. I don't get to take reign until Deb leaves us at the end of the month. We're super excited for all of her service and thankful. And I'm joined by my posse here of members of the Substance Abuse Council. All right, so as you all know, every year we submit a comprehensive report to the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, just outlining our goals for our community, an assessment of the community and kind of what we need. And that was due last year, which I have the letter here. Do you need that? You have that, don't you?
I think I have a lot.
Okay, perfect. So we will be doing that again this year. Should be working on that with the coordinator, Brooke Lampert, here soon. What you see is actually the awards that we just granted out last fall. So kind of giving you an idea of some of the things that we fund. But we are here today very simply to ask to pull down the funds that were collected from user fees for the Substance Abuse Council from last year. And that total would be $41,294.66. And as I know you all know, that actually gets split into 4 categories. So we have prevention, education, treatment intervention, and the criminal justice services, as well as the 4th category, which is administration. So that pays our coordinator's salary, all of their benefits, as well as anything else that we need for the council. And each one of those categories will have $10,323.66. Let me read that number again. The 10,000 or the 10? Okay. $10,323.66. $323.66.
2 will have 66 and 2 will have 67.
All right. Terry's my math guy, so if you have financial questions, he's the one to ask. Do y'all have any questions for us about anything the Substance Abuse Council is doing?
Hear any questions or anyone else got anything?
How does the vape detection work?
Am I allowed to disclose that?
Yeah, just
Okay.
for general.
Sure. So we've kind of been keeping that hush hush because we don't want the high school students to know, but essentially it works kind of like a smoke detector. So a lot of the schools are placing them in their bathroom, and so kids are vaping, that cloud of vapor sets it off. It can also be set off by loud noises. So if there's a fight in the bathroom, what happens then is that signals, I believe it's an email and or a text message to like the school resource officer, the principal, different administrative individuals. So that was actually something that the SRO from Northeast Bois applied for 2 years ago, and then this last year we had a couple more applications, so I think it's been working really well.
So, between the two, at Jasper High School and Forest Park, they're under different problem statements.
I'll
Forest
give you
Park,
my copy. Yeah, so what we had done is our intention is always to spend all of our funds. So we try to make it work as far as what we can fund out of each category. And then all of our ideas of how we want to fund things are submitted to ICJI and they approve it. So they allowed us to do that, which we were really thankful for because Jasper was able to get a couple of theirs funded through the school board. And so they requested a few additional for us because they have such large schools that they need to facilitate. And I believe his actually are portable, so we can put them on the bus or do something else, move them around once kids kind of get the locations figured out. But yeah, ICJI would allow us to do that.
cool.
Any other questions about anything? What stuff
Can,
it
I
is?
just want to pivot a little bit here. So
Sure.
can you talk about how people get on how do you guys volunteer to be on the abuse council? How does one, if somebody wants to be involved, how do they?
Are you
I've received some calls
Are you-
about, I've received calls about people wanting to get involved, and they don't know what to get involved, and I want to.
So that's a great question.
Okay.
If they just want to attend meetings, they're open to the public, so anybody can. If you actually want to be on the board, we hold elections every year. We actually just had them in January. So it's a very simple nomination process, and then we vote. So per our bylaws, we're allowed to have so many representatives, and they typically do different categories. So like, for example, Nancy Eckerly is our business representative, whereas Jenny represents judicial. So they would have to contact us around December time, submit their nomination, but they're always welcome to come to meetings.
Okay.
I think we usually have really good turnouts and we're able to discuss what's going on in the community, so people know what's going on, we're not duplicating efforts, it's just a really cool thing.
Tell them when the meetings are.
Oh, second Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m., we've been meeting at the Jasper Library in their Hickory rooms. It's a beautiful meeting space.
I know it's a big help too, because I'm still on the email list, so I get to check through every month.
Well, if you want to be on the email list, our email address is DCSAC, so Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council, the acronym, at DuBoisCountyIron.org. And Brooke would be more than happy to add you. As her mean chair-elect will tell her to.
Okay,
Okay, so I have some additional appropriations for that money. The coordinator salary of $6,075. And then
do we need to vote on each one? of
she
these?
made them individually, so
Okay. Okay, so the coordinator's salary is $675.
$6,075.
$6,075. Okay, so.
I'll make
okay,
a motion
to
to,
approve that.
yes.
I'll second.
Doug seconded. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay, and then the benefits would be $464.74.
I'll make that motion.
Greg made a motion to approve that. You have a second?
Second.
Charmaine seconded. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? So that carries.
The third thing is the discretionary $3,783.92.
Discretionary, I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Can I ask a question first, discretionary, what falls into that category?
So that is how we pay our coordinator and anything else that we would need. So like, for example, for the overdose awareness vigil, we bought signs a few years ago that said 10+ way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure, thank you.
And who did the second?
Becky,
Oh, I was first, sorry.
Becky approved, or made a motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
Sonia seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And the final part is for the contractual $30,971.
Hearing that, the contractual, amount.
Okay,
Entertain a
so just,
motion.
can I ask a question? So is that the three categories?
Yes, that's the 3 categories that we ranked out of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion then to approve that.
So moved.
Show me, made a motion, to have a second.
I'll second.
Doug seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And then I need the salary ordinance. She will be paid a max of $22.50 per hour, 22 hours per month, and there's an additional 6 hours in there to be used during grant time when they need a little more time.
Part-time position, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So anyone have any questions on that pay ordinance? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
Greg made a motion to approve. Have a second.
Second.
Alex seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So, is that all? Anyone have any questions for Jenna? Otherwise, I would like, if you would, we're on YouTube here, I guess, could you introduce the members?
I would love to.
All your members?
All right, so we have Terry Tanner, he's our treasurer. We have Nancy Eckerly, she's our business sector rep. Deb Capps, you were just elected as a rep for alumni, yes. And then Deb is actually technically our chair still to the end of the month per our bylaws. She's just trying to get me work ahead of time. And then Jenny Lampert, she's our judicial representative. And then at the very end, that is Brooke Lampert, and she is actually our coordinator. We hired her in August, and she's been doing a fabulous job.
Well, thank you all for attending tonight.
Thanks for having us. I'll get your email on the list. If you guys have any other questions, Brooke's doing a great job with our social media, so you guys can check that out too. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is Sheriff Kleinhelter.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you guys? I guess right now, this is just more of an informative meeting. I sent you all an email about the part-time help a couple weeks ago, and last week I went to the commissioners meeting. They approved the position and they moved it into my part-time fund of part-time cook, part-time program director, and they added a part-time jail officer to that line item. So there is really no monetary reason to meet with you guys. It's more of just an informative of that's where the money is gonna come out of if we do hire a part-time jail officer. But I'm willing and more than happy to answer any questions if you have any questions about it.
So is there enough money in that account for?
There is, yeah, there's still
For that salary range?
$20,000 in that line item, which we've not used that line item since I've been sheriff, so.
And it'll cover the range for,
Yes, they put the range in there for the part-time jail officer. I know Sandy and Becky were there. I think it was 1202 to 1228,
Something like that.
something like that. So I guess my question on that is something I don't know. So if we did hire someone, can it be anywhere in that range?
Yeah, you can start at the bottom of the range.
And then do
But
I have
it's capped at a
discretion?
certain amount in the budget.
It's capped at 1228 an hour, but if I hired someone in at 1205, can I give them a raise whenever if they like,
As long as you fill out that salary redirection form.
okay. I guess that's what I didn't know.
So, Tom, what are your thoughts then on hiring a high school?
Um,
For a boy or a girl?
Yeah,
Anybody?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I mean, honestly, an SRO reached out to myself, and then he had an individual that thought would be good, obviously wants to get into law enforcement, does not plan on going to any kind of college or anything like that, wants to get his foot in the door, and that's kind of how it streamlined this a little quicker, because I know in the email, I mean, this has been something we've been contemplating for a while, but we always thought about full-time. And it was like, well, is it justified? Is it not? And then when this got presented, it was like, well, it's a perfect way to see if it is or isn't. And then it's a part-time position. It's also helping like a high school kid or whatever come in and get his foot in the door to see whether this is a career he wants or doesn't want, or she or whatever else. So that's kind of where it was. I mean, does it have to be high school? No. So we'll take applications and we'll figure out who the right fit is. But obviously it's someone that we would probably prefer in the long term. Like if there is a full-time position come available, that we would have that person, that's been there. We see what kind of a worker they are. And they would also see whether this is what they want to do.
I think personally, I think it's a great idea, that feed, like a feeder system.
Yeah.
I really do, I think, that exposure's gotta be worth a lot.
Right. And I know it was brought up in the commission
When I started that high school program,
to get them that
to
experience.
get them that experience and to kind of see, this is kind of just the next natural step. If they don't want to go to college next year or something, they want to take a break or something and see for sure.
Right.
Before going into criminology or something like that,
Yeah.
I think it's a good opportunity for them.
We were just talking, I know one of the Commissioner Brahmas's questions about having a high school person in the jail was a kind of a concern of the liability and all that. But our thought process is the control room, and that's where it's so busy sometimes. So if it's somebody in high school, even though they're 18, I would probably not want them out on the floor intermingling with inmates. They would probably be in the control room helping another officer do the tasks in there. But there's so much knowledge that can be learned in there, and then obviously just being around other officers, they can talk and ask questions and know the ins and the outs of our jail and our department. It's only going to benefit us in the long run, I believe. So.
Any other questions?
How's the hiring process gonna work? Is this something that you'll get with Marky on, or is this something that you guys do out there?
We'll probably just handle it out there. And maybe it's just end with Marky, just put a quick part-time. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of people looking for part-time jobs right now, but I mean, go anywhere in your part-time job. So, but we'll make sure that we do it the legal way, whatever that is. I'll get with Marky and make sure that we cover all our bases before we move forward.
I wasn't insinuating you weren't gonna do it. Just to be clear,
Well,
I mean,
You better read the shit.
yeah.
yeah, that's not what I wasn't saying. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know some of the labor laws like that. I'll get with Marky and just make sure that we cover all of our bases.
I think the concern I had was, why didn't this get included in the budget? Whenever I saw it on the agenda, I thought, oh my goodness, how is this suddenly coming up the first month of the year?
Well, honestly, it wouldn't have.
Okay.
Because we were contemplating and trying to do our own little in-house study, whether to go forward with a full-time position. That if we decided that we needed it, it would have been on the budget next year. Because it gets overwhelming in that. But then when Seth Sickbert and the school resource officer reached out to me about some type of part-time or anything like that, and that's when it kind of got the ball rolling, and that was just right at Christmas time. So this has been pretty quick, trying to get this. And then when I looked at my budget, I seen the part-time budget, and then I got with Sandy, and then we figured out that yes, we would have to get a position created for a part-time jailer. So it really wasn't it wasn't something that we thought about back at the budget time. It was thought about the position, but we weren't ready to move forward on anything yet because there's just not enough information whether it was needed or not at that time for a full-time position. So this kind of gave us a little bit quicker way to, I guess, move forward and find out whether it's worth it or not. So it could be, and it's gonna give us information of like, yes, I wanna move forward and make it a full-time position if possible, or if we figure out that, you know what, part-time is working, and maybe we'll just keep it part-time. And maybe it's just a combination of figuring out what hours a part-time position could cover, which would get us through most of the busy times. You know, I think it's gonna give us information that we can make a good quality argument that it is worth it, or we're good with where it's at, or we find out that, you know what, it's not working at all.
I think it gives you good flexibility to figure out what would work best and
Yeah.
you know.
Because this is a position
If you can
that-
make a part-time position work with certain hour times, then great. If not, then
Right.
I think it'll show you that you definitely need more.
Because it is a
I
position that
think
we
it's
don't
a
have.
good track to kind of go down to see if it's, you know, really needed for that extra.
I'm just looking at the wage chart and the different job titles and things. I think I would like to see, you know, if it's a part-time jailer, then that C-pole position, the civil, you know. Like the part-time line item right now is the labor trades, you know, category, and that doesn't really fit there. But, you know, that can be changed some other time.
And you're talking something, yeah, I don't.
What's the range of what you're thinking then?
Well, I'm not sure. It's just that that type of a job doesn't necessarily fit in with the labor trades category. It's more with the jailers, which are all in the C-pole category.
I don't understand that.
Does the range kind of match up as far as the money goes?
Well, we
It
don't
doesn't
have,
Or
exist.
it doesn't,
right, we
so
don't
have to
have
make
that category that exists right now because we don't have anybody, you know, kind of in a
Yeah.
totally part-time, just starting out, no experience,
Mhm.
you know,
Makes sense.
not having any interaction with, you know,
C-pool what?
just that category.
Is there a number behind it or?
Not yet. I
Okay.
mean, it would probably be a 1 or a 2.
We have to restructure the rest of the C-poles to make that as the bottom.
That's right, Sean.
I mean, it may not be a higher wage rate normally, but probably be with. Also,
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, that, you know, with the new jail pilot and the, you know, control room up there, that may alleviate some of the stress at busy times, you know, we don't know that.
We don't know, yeah.
But I mean, that's a little time off here yet, but, you know, it would give you an opportunity here this year to do, because, you know,
Right.
we're gonna be in that building, you know, what, by the end of the year, next year.
Probably not anymore,
Well, I know what you're saying,
yeah.
but I mean, it's gonna be finished, let's say.
Yeah.
So do we need to take any action on this? We just, since they just added the.
They just added that, yeah, and I think when I first set it up, I thought it was gonna be a whole lot of restructuring, but, I know I talked to Becky after the meeting, and she didn't really think that there was any need, for you to do anything, but it's just more of an informative, well, this is the direction that we're looking at, and why.
Okay. Anybody else has any questions specific to that, or?
So Charmaine, do you think this is something that we would change at budget time and add another position code or?
When do you plan on hiring them?
Well, I'll talk to Marky tomorrow and, probably fairly quickly. I mean,
Probably just gonna have to add it to a commissioner meeting sometime and just,
Because they just kept it at what it was.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought they were specific to that amount, that it could not exceed that amount.
Well, they left
They were.
they left the classification at what it was, which you're saying it'd probably be better under this classification, so.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
probably change
logical, you
Right.
know?
Because that said part-time cook, case manager, right?
Yeah, part-time cook, part-time program director,
Program director.
and then that was it. And then they just added to that
Part-time
to keep it in that
Jail.
same
jailer.
line item.
And they said leave it at that salary, so it was easy.
Yeah.
Because the money's there then.
And we got a few more minutes. I always tell them about the progress at the jail. Could you maybe, if you have any issues,
Yeah.
or explain it?
Nope, everything is, I think everything's moving forward just good. All the pods are set. The walls are up. It's a little too cold now for them to be laying a lot of block in the new pod, so they're working every day. Everything's under roof now, so I think the last that we had talked about just a minute ago about moving in there, it's kind of up in the air now, where we kind of discussed maybe what's going to be most cost effective to the county and most beneficial to the contractors is to get the pod done and then have community corrections move all of their people and staff into the pod so that the construction could get into the corrections building, totally get that done, then they would move back, and then we would move into the pod. So it would delay us 9 months to a year getting in there, but I think it's the most cost effective for the county. Me and Megan talked about it today, and I was like, I have no idea how we never thought of that until the last couple of weeks, but it was a good thought process. So
Saves a lot of processes there.
yeah, it saves all the temporary construction
Right.
to make the jail fit Megan's needs, and then tear it all back down. Like I said, I have no idea why nobody thought of that before today or the last couple of weeks, but it does make the most sense. So, but other than that, I think everything's going great. Anybody ever wants to see it, give me a holler. We'll walk you
But we
through
get
it.
a group.
Sounds good to me. Okay.
Okay. I don't have anything else unless someone else does, but I appreciate you coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the next one. Sean, are you there? Sean?
I thought he'd be
I think he's probably
thin.
muting himself, probably.
I'm here.
Okay, so you're next on the agenda, the grant. Maybe if you could just do, I think what we were asking, if you could just do a little more explaining. I think you weren't at our meeting, or you weren't able to attend a meeting where we kind of talked about this or approved this. And we were just wanting, maybe if you could say a little bit, because it seems like there's a lot to this grant. When did it started? I think it was, and you probably know better than I, it started in June of this past year, and it goes to, and it goes to July. And we were just wondering, well, I think that we just had a few questions, if you could speak about it a little bit.
Yeah, so this grant came available, it says on the contract in June or July, which it actually didn't come to our office to sign until December. That gets how far the days behind on these things. So this was brought about to help with local health departments and also schools. I reached out to all of our school superintendents and also Holy Trinity to see, what kind of needs they had, if any. Some of them did express some interest in some help, but most of them said that they are reporting and they are holding their own for the current moment. So we still pursued it as a funding opportunity to gain 2 additional staff members to start to alleviate our PRNs, because we have about 3 or 4 PRNs we bring in every single day that are retired, and they're getting wore out because they're almost working full time and they're supposed to be retired. So we see the need to try to help alleviate some of that, an additional nurse and a clerk. So that's kind of why we presented last time, but there is additional funding that is going to be available for us to hold on to in the future to use for any type of COVID-related expense in the future. Because once the year and a half, I guess right now we have a half a year left. It will expire this June with the possibility of an extension for another year. Once that is up, there will be money that has not been expended, obviously, because whatever we have the need for at that time. But they're basically non-reverting funds. So once we meet the 4 deliverables, then that's our money to keep. Similar to the BOA grant that we received years ago. Once we met the deliverable, the money was ours. We put it in a fund, and we have used that over the past couple of years to pay for expenses that we needed out of that wasn't taken out of our regular budget. So basically, it's a pretty simple grant. There's 4 deliverables that we have to meet. We've already met the first 2, and we've also received for the first $110,000 for deliverable 1. We've submitted deliverable number 2, so hopefully the second $110,000 should be coming relatively soon.
Sean, can I ask what the 4 deliverables are?
They were in the contract that Sandy sent to you, but I'll pull them up here real quick.
Thank you.
The first one was a signed contract, which we've already done. That's deliverable number 1. That's what we submitted and received funding for. The second one was submit school liaison contact information. We just submitted that last week when Jack Mendel, our newest employee, started at that position. Deliverable number 3 is to complete a public health and COVID-19 needs school assessment. We do not know what that looks like yet, but once we receive that link to upload, that will be our new clerk, Jack Mendel, and whoever the new nurse is we hire, that'll be their job to complete that school assessment. And then obviously the 4th one is school reporting. So currently our 4 districts plus Holy Trinity are doing their own reporting. So we would just basically reach out to them to see if they're going to continue to do it or if they need any support with that, as long as they continue the reporting that deliverable met as well. And then there's additional requirements that these 2 positions will help schools fill if the need arises. So it'll be like COVID testing, contact tracing, public education, any types of COVID needs within the school. If a school nurse gets sick and they need a replacement for a day or 2, we could potentially send our nurse over there to help them get through that difficult situation. Anything like that a school would need is what we would be there to help back them up on.
Thanks for outlining that, Sean.
Sean, it's Becky. Anything in there on mental health? The grant?
Public education would probably be about the only thing that I would see. If it's a COVID-related need and you guys think that that's something we need to pursue, but we don't have mental health providers at the health department, so that would be a difficult one for us to accomplish.
I just wondered if that was something that was in the grant, just knowing what some of those struggles are right now.
I don't read anything in there that specifically says we can use it for, mental health. I know that's definitely a need. But like I said, we don't have a mental health provider at the health department. That would be something we would use, like our Life Springs or something like that. But I don't know how we would partner with them. These funds have to be specifically used for, COVID or school related needs.
Okay, thank you.
There's also a list, if you read further down, for expenses that are not allowed. So non-COVID related expenses, major construction or renovations, research, clinical care, and then publicity or propaganda or lobbying are basically prohibited from this grant. So that's just kind of giving you an idea. That's on page 12 of 17. I think they need to send in this contract.
Yeah, we got a copy. I think we are with it. We reviewed it anyway.
Okay, so I have 4 different forms for the additional appropriation so we can spend this grant. For personal services, $121,595.
Was that a question towards me?
No,
we're gonna-
it's me.
We're
Sean and
gonna-
Sandy.
We're gonna try to approve these.
Okay.
There's like 4 different categories here.
Yeah, that's not good.
So if you can hang on in case any other questions.
Okay.
Okay, so the personal services, 121,595.
At the last meeting, we already did the salary ordinance, so we could start using that money.
I move that we approve that appropriation.
Charmaine made a motion to approve it. And
I'll second.
Becky seconded. All in favor, say aye.
And,
Anyone opposed?
Okay, the supplies, $100,000.
Any questions on supplies?
I do have one question, Sean, Charmaine here again. Can these funds be transferred around, or are you like locked into the categories?
No, they will be able to be, transferred like you do other
Okay,
budgets. We just come up with, something to put in each category, that way if we need something out of each one, we just divvy it up as evenly as possible, because obviously we know we need the first, 5 or 6 columns, 5 columns there for the staff, and then the remaining we just evenly kind of distributed amongst the other categories, kind of like our other grants.
thanks for explaining that. I just know that some grants are real rigid on how they can be spent, but not this one, so thank you for outlining that.
No problem.
Any other questions on supplies? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve $100,000 for supplies.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Craig made a motion. I have a second.
I'll second.
Sonia seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Okay, the next is the other services category, another $100,000.
Questions on other services? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve other services for $100,000.
I make the motion.
Okay, Doug made a motion. And a second.
I'll second.
Jermaine seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And finally, capital outlay, $118,405.
Any questions on capital outlays? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve $118,405.
I'll make that motion, Mike.
Becky made the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Alex seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that's approved.
And then the only thing I have left for the health department is they need a transfer in the immunization and vaccine supplemental 3 grant. They'd like to move $11,350.69 to personal services in the PRN position. If you have any questions on
Do you want to explain that a little bit, Sean?
Yeah, so this is one of our other immunization grants that we received, kind of similar to the one we just approved. So the line items we were designated on this one, what to put in each category. So the state gave us permission to transfer funds if need be. So obviously, we're using PRNs every day, and that's where we're getting most of, all of our money to pay for PRNs right now is coming out of this fund to try to save county money. So we are not planning to use travel or contractual out of those line items. So we need to put the $11,350 in the personal services for our PRNs to continue to help us.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay, any other questions for this transfer? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the $11,350.69 personal services.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Doug made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sonia seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I believe that's all I have for the health department.
Anyone else have any questions or for Sean? Sean, I appreciate being on tonight. I think we don't have any other questions. Oh, go ahead. Wait a minute.
Appreciate you
Oh.
having me up.
Hold on a minute.
Sorry, I couldn't be there.
Sean,
This Judge Verkamp.
He's staying on. He's gonna stay on.
you're gonna stay on, okay, I was just making fun, I feel sorry about to hang out with him, so stay on for the next.
No, I'm gonna stay on.
Okay, good, I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
I'll probably stay on for the next two, because I think the next one is, the interpreter, and then the other one is the 911 move possibly, so I'll stay on for both these if you guys have questions out of me.
Okay.
Like I said, I apologize, I couldn't be there, but COVID hit our house, so I was sick, and, you know, we're kind of stuck here at home, so.
Okay.
I know what you mean.
Well, thanks.
Back 2 weeks ago.
Just let us know if you got anything as we go on here. Okay, so the next thing we have on the agenda is the Spanish interpreter. I don't know who's gonna address that.
Doesn't matter. We can all take turns, I guess.
Would you introduce yourself for the public?
All right. I'm Mark Powell. I'm Superior Court Judge here in Bois County. And I'm really, excuse me, here on behalf of some of the other office holders here in the county and employees, Judge Verkamp, Prosecutor Anthony Quinn, and then our Chief Probation Officer, Jenny Lampert. But we went before the commissioners a week or so ago and expressed an interest in having a Spanish interpreter employed by the county. There seems to be a lot of support for that. And our thinking, obviously we have a need through the courts and the probation department and I think somewhat through the prosecutor's office as well, but we're kind of looking at it as a position that would be available to all of the county offices if there would be a need. Primarily, we know that we're going to have a fairly significant need in the courts, and I mentioned in that last meeting that we have had a nun, Sister Mary Judith Flagg, who has done most of the interpreting for us for many years as part of her calling, and we pay her, of course, for that, but she is 80 years old, and she has indicated that she wishes to slow down. I know she's not going to be available for a couple of months because she's going to Haiti as part of her duties there, but in any event, I think she's expressed an interest to slow down a little bit when she comes back. But we're looking for someone who we can get certified to be a court interpreter, and with that certification, there's the possibility of getting some grant money to help support that position. We also, Judge Verkamp and myself, have some money budgeted for interpreters as well as mental health professionals to assess competency. That's all kind of been lumped together. Each court has a fund for that, and I think we both expressed a willingness to give up some of those funds or contribute some of those funds toward the interpreter position. But as I said, we have a need fairly regularly because our Hispanic population is growing, and the number of Hispanic or Spanish-speaking individuals who come into our courts are growing. And of course, then if they're sentenced and put on probation, then they have to go up to the probation department and meet with them on a regular basis. So there's a growing need there. And as I said, we can keep them busy, I think, a good deal of the time. Our thinking is that position would also be available, for instance, the health department, if they had a need, or, any department of county government, if there's a need for dealing with a Spanish-speaking population to assist them, that person would be kind of on call at times when they're not being used in the courts. So that's, we had asked the commissioners to create that position. Of course, they hadn't given us a definite answer, but I think the reception was positive that they would like to do that. And of course, we're here asking for your blessing as well and asking for the money to fund that position. So I don't know if there's anything else that the others want to add to that. I'm glad to answer questions as well. So we haven't really talked, I don't think, about a set amount for that person to be paid. Like I say, we both have funds that could be contributed towards that. I know that some of the council members had done salary studies or things of that nature some time ago for other county positions, and I suppose we could do something similar. But we're paying Sister Mary Jewel Flag $30 an hour. I would anticipate that we would pay someone who's a full-time employee less than that because they would be available, 35 hours a week as opposed to just on call. I know Judge Werkamp has had some dealings with some interpreters from out of county that are charging like $500 for half a day or $80 an hour. It varies. My thinking is probably we're looking at somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000 for an annual salary. It's kind of ballpark of where I think we ought to be. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but in any event, that's what I'm asking, I guess, for consideration. So,
Currently, Sister Mary Judith is a contracted
right.
individual. She's not an employee.
Right.
So how, can I ask, I always have tons of questions, so I apologize in advance.
That's all right. And you can ask of anybody too.
So can you help me understand like how much she's utilized now?
I would say between the two courts, probably we've spent $10,000 to $15,000 on her in the last year, or on an annual basis. I would say, I know that Judge Werkamp is currently using someone else who's employed by the Southwest Du Bois School Corporation to do some of his interpreting, and I'm not sure she's being paid the same.
She'd be the same currently, yes.
I guess
So-
I'm just curious time-wise, like.
It just varies. For instance, we have traffic court in my court every Thursday afternoon. If there are 2 or 3 Hispanics, she'll show up early. She'll go over with them the charges that have been filed against them, their constitutional rights, the maximum penalties that they could be facing. That's time that is not done in court, but then we bring them into court and I have a discussion with them as well. So probably on Thursdays, if we have 3 or 4 Hispanics, we're spending at least an hour and a half there. We've been trying to, because the availability has been kind of scarce lately, we've been trying to do Hispanic cases on Mondays and Fridays. And like you say, it just varies. I could probably use her, 8 or 9 hours a week. I'm sure Judge Werkamp probably somewhere in the same neighborhood. I don't know, Jenny, how much time you would think you would need.
Well, I put some data together just to kind of take a look at where we're at with it. And last week we had 632 people on probation. 96 of them were Hispanic. 68 of them needed an interpreter. So I think the bigger question is where we don't use one that we should be using one and providing the service for an individual. So if sister wouldn't be available for whatever reason, then we ask them to bring in their own interpreter so that we can at least talk to them. And as I was meeting with one individual a few weeks ago, it became quickly apparent to me she was interpreting for him, but as I'm talking and asking questions, she was the victim in the domestic violence case that she was the one he battered. So obviously I don't want her to be the interpreter for him. And we run into problems like that. Sometimes we have their children interpret for them just because that's the only way that we can talk with them. And so as far as how often I could use someone, about 50 of our intakes, which is our initial appointment when someone is sentenced in the court, when they come up to meet with us to go over everything, their life history, sometimes to write a report about that for the courts. There were about 50 of those last year. Those take about an hour each, sometimes a couple hours. as well as then individual appointments as they're coming in weekly, those 68 people that we would have on at a minimum once a month. We would be meeting with them. If they're higher risk, we could be meeting with them once a week.
You know, I'm not sure that we can keep them busy 35 hours a week to begin with. I think eventually it would grow into a situation like that, but it's a matter of more just having them available when we need them, because you just never really know. And we're trying to shuffle things around right now to use them on certain days. It would be obviously better if they were available anytime. If someone's arrested overnight and we bring them into court the next morning, then we would have that interpreter there available to, instead of having to wait 2 or 3 days and then figure out, what we do in the meantime. The other thing is, like you say, I anticipate that it would be a position that would be available to anyone in the county. So if they're not busy in court, that, at a moment's notice, somebody in another department could say, hey, we have somebody here who wants to know, how to record a deed or something like that. That person could be called to the recorder's office and they could have a conversation with them. But that would be true of any department in the county. And obviously, more about what departments there are and what need there might be maybe than we do. I look at it, and we talked about this the other day, who would that person report to? And my recommendation would be that they report to Markey and be, I guess, more or less a HR assistant, in the sense that, they could help with Spanish-speaking folks, but also if they weren't busy 35 hours a week, that if there were other HR things that they could help with, or ways that they could help other places in the county, that they would be available to do that as well until they work into a full-time.
Because that was my biggest concern, since there isn't like a real nailed down like time study on like how much time.
I think we're gonna probably at first find that they're not busy 35 hours a week, but I think in a very short order, I think that we're gonna end up fighting with this person.
Right.
Because I think we're gonna need them more than 35 hours at some point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. But my concern is, in the beginning, like if we're employing someone at a full-time rate, I'm like, we don't want them to only have, like 19 hours working for a week, and then all of a sudden,
And
like,
I agree with that. That's why
I
I thought it would be best to have him report to Markey, and he could more or less, whoever would need them for anything.
This is Sean with the health department. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I'm having a hard time hearing everything kind of cutting in and out, but I'll just throw my 2 cents in there. So we have needs for an interpreter quite often as well. We have quite a few number of Hispanic restaurants that our inspectors have a hard time, communicating with. So that a lot of times the children will come up, get them later in the evening to try to interpret it. And I don't really know for sure how confident we are that the 10 or 12-year-old is going to tell the cook or the chef the correct information. So it would be better to, have an interpreter with us in those situations. We see a lot of Hispanic coming in for immunization, so we could, potentially use them there as well. We have people calling in every day wanting, to talk to us about COVID-related issues or any other issues that we have a lot of times we'll have to call an interpreter in on a line, or sometimes we did have a interpreter when we had a part-time position, Irma. She was great, and she's since moved on, so we don't have that anymore. She would, translate documents and anything that we would need in Spanish. That's kind of a struggle on our part. We put free meat card as well. So I just wanted to throw our 2 cents into help part of why, what our need is as well.
Sounds like probably is a good enough need to almost get to that 35 if we can nail down the scheduling of it. Like if certain departments have it, like you guys said you did certain days, if you could have a person for certain days of the week, and then maybe the health department have it for another day, and then be available through the phone if questions or something, or set up a master calendar that all the departments can see in the county.
Yeah, I think we can work that out.
Yeah.
Through Mark.
Through Marky would help out a lot with that, but I think sounds like there's a lot of need for it.
Regarding the competency level, so do the current interpreters have any trouble? I mean, Spanish is a Latin-based language, but I feel like in the legal terms, you're gonna have some pretty, you're gonna have to have a pretty qualified interpreter.
Yeah, there's a specific certification that, we were talking about grants that the Indiana Supreme Court will give you a grant if that interpreter is a certified court interpreter. And there are courses they have to take and tests they have to take in order to get that certification. So that ultimately, that would be our goal, to get them certified, so that they're competent.
Do you think we could get a court certified interpreter that would work for that kind of money?
That I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest with you, what interpreters go for on the open market as far as full-time job. I know what we're paying, roughly, let's say $30 an hour. If you take that times 35 hours a week for a year, it's over $52,000. I don't know, if anyone will take it for less than that. I guess my thought would be to throw it out and see if there are any people interested. If they're not, if we have to increase it from there to get people interested. I think there's a lot of benefits, though, to most of the people that are doing interpreting are doing it, like you say, as independent contractors, and they're getting paid an hourly fee. If they're a full-time employee, we all know that there are good benefits through the county as far as health benefits and things like that I think are an additional incentive to take that job, even if the pay isn't quite what they would be making on an hourly basis. So I think there's some offset there that, with that, with those benefits that are available through the county, that you could probably get someone for less than that $30 times 35 hours.
Could you touch on, I think in the commissioners meeting, you spoke about maybe having someone without certification and have them obtain training to get them certified? Is that a possibility yet?
Yeah, if someone is interested in a full-time position, we can hire them and then we can send them to that training.
Because we're in an area here that, is highly, highly concentrated with Spanish speaking. Seems like that would be an opportunity for someone to, come out of high school or whatever it takes. But, and the other thing I'd like for you to touch on, Judge Verkamp, you spoke about how you do it now. Sometimes you got a phone call. Could you just explain that?
Sure. Well, with the absence of Sister Mary Judith, right now we're using Language Line, which is a service made available to us by the Indiana Court Services. So I call basically a 1-800 number. I get an interpreter from, they're kind of all over not just the country. Last time I spoke to an interpreter, they were calling in or received my call from Mexico City. So, and then they interpret while the defendant is standing. We usually bring them up to the bench so they can hear, the interpreter can hear. And it's getting us by, on initial hearings and other things, but it would never work for a trial. And the real issue there becomes whether they actually, when you ask them, do you understand your rights? Sometimes even the interpreter will ask them, and you'll get you get that look, but then they'll answer in the affirmative. One of the things, that's our requirement, is to ensure that they know their rights at the initial hearing when they're advised. And I think it's a cultural issue, maybe a cultural issue or just a lack of knowledge with respect to our criminal justice system. The last time I used language line, it took me an hour to get through an initial hearing. Usually doesn't take 10 minutes because of all the questions the individual kept asking. And the nice thing about having Sister Mary Judith or an interpreter there is they actually sit down and read the charges to them. They read them an advice of rights, and they sign an advice of rights with them in Spanish before we ever start. So it's kind of been explained to them once already, and it really streamlines the process. So we're limping by right now using the phone, using language line, but it's just kind of a patch.
Thanks for explaining. I didn't know if everybody heard that at the commissioners meeting, but I think that's how you're doing it now. How are we getting by now? All of a sudden, so.
He brings up a good point too, that when we do have a trial, even like if we may need the interpreter so many hours a week, but if we have a trial that may last 3 or 4 days, we'll need that interpreter, all day, every day during that period of time. So, there are going to be times when the demand's going to be high and other times not so much. But definitely we'll, if we have a trial of a Spanish-speaking individual, we'll need them all day, every day if that trial's going to be.
Since we are working, I guess trying to figure out financing of this position, Sean, do you have money, extra money laying around that you could help contribute to this position, or is that an unfair question?
Probably not out of my health budget, but I might, if some of my grants allow it, I might have some money out of one of those for, I guess that would be short term though. You probably want a long term commitment.
Well, I think to get started here, I think because we don't really have that position budgeted for this year. So, it would help us get by a year here before next budget here. I don't know, it's just a thought. Because, one of you have 16,000 in there and one have 12, but you can't give it all away, but it would help. And then we could possibly fund it the first year. It seems like there's a need there, so what we've got to
to
do.
talk to Mark and try to figure out a better amount to kind of go off of, I would think. That might be a good idea as well,
That's fair,
to
yeah.
figure out what a fair wage would be, since it's eventually gonna have to get certification and all that stuff. I would think that just to kind of cover our, bases to make sure we're getting at the right range to start off with. Because he knows the benefits of the county with the health insurance and all that stuff, and you factor that in as well.
And we could, I don't know, would we put that under the HR, but assistant,
Since it's used for the whole county, I would think you could, they'd be available to the whole county. I think it would have to be under HR, but it wouldn't have to be a commissioner. But
Just thoughts here, how we're gonna move forward, if we would move forward.
Quick question about the grant you mentioned, Judge. Do you know how much they offer in grants?
I don't know specifically.
Apply for it?
Yeah, I would have to look into it a little bit more. I mean, just ballparking right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had kind of looked at it a while back, but determined that we weren't going to be able to get, none of our people that we've used before have been certified. So we couldn't get that grant because those people weren't qualified. So,
I had a trial a while back, and then we did have I had to bring in a certified interpreter from Louisville, and then Sister Mary Judith interpreted for the other, and the lady from Louisville filed a complaint against the county with the courts for not using an certified interpreter for Sister Mary Judith wasn't certified. So, it's really something, we have a need, and as I think I spoke with Sean for a while last week. I think Sean had indicated that he had asked for a part-time position several months ago, heard from EMA. Could you imagine if there were a disaster? How do we push out emergency alerts to the Spanish-speaking population in an emergency. We can't right now. I mean, we would be, we have somebody's child or somebody we don't know come in and help Tammy and EMA. This person would be able to assist at the jail, would be able to assist, just like probation, community corrections has a need because they supervise individuals that are Spanish-speaking. I think we might find that we're using the full 35 hours and then some pretty quickly. I think once we all put together how often we're using.
Is my concern, I'm not, you don't have to sell me on the idea that there's a need, it's just how do we pay for it, if there's grant funds available, how can we access those?
I did look at that grant, the deadline was December 31st for this year, and they didn't have the amounts there, so I'm not sure if they divide it by counties or how they do that, but there weren't any set amounts through the court services. And speaking with Vanderbilt County, I pulled some of the other counties just to see what they do, and they get $6,000 a year, and they said, which is not anywhere near their need that they have for interpretation services. That from the grant, they got $6,000 last year.
Every little bit helps.
So there's a lot of, it appears to me there's a lot of issues here that, the coordination, where they're gonna be, there may be under Markey, but does he have room in his office to have another staff? We don't have we got an office shortage here too. Those things I think we have to think about. But I think, we can take a hand vote on what we want to do tonight. To support this moving forward, maybe is that a way to do it? Just have a hand vote and then move.
You can do a consensus, yes, but I'm gonna have to know if you want me to do an additional appropriation for next month, where you want it and how much. And we'll need to know that within a couple of weeks here because we have to advertise for the next meeting. Because you have to advertise it 10 days before, and that takes about a week before that, so you're not talking very long, and then we'll have to have it to the papers.
Commissioners haven't approved the position yet, have they? So wouldn't they have to do that first?
They have to create
That's
why
do that beforehand, so.
That's what I was thinking, if we just, have a
So it's on the
consensus that we support it, but I don't know if we would want to take any action tonight until I'd like to get.
They can't take it.
Well, that's-
Yeah, it's a consensus to see if
we move forward. Yeah. There's some things I'd like to, I think as a council, we need to look into it, see how we would split it, how would we, it just seems like a lot of unanswered questions. Can we limp by another month or 2 months?
We have to. We don't really have any choice. So, we're at your mercy.
So
Just bad timing right now that she's.
Well, I know I mentioned to the judge when we first talked about it, maybe we should just put out a feeler. Is there anybody out there who would work contracted services for this interim until we can get somebody hired?
There is a Spanish-speaking individual that works for Purdue Extension that has agreed to help our court out temporarily for a time. But I don't think they anticipate that to be long-term at all. And they more or less agreed to do it without us having to pay them at this point, which, like I say, is a short-term fix, maybe.
Well,
But it's
that
not
is
gonna
good.
work in the long term.
Well, I serve on the board, and that is a good short term, and I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's a new, kind of newer position out here so they're developing what she's doing, so that is kind of.
But would she have enough time to do, you guys say you have
She's not
about
gonna have a lot of time.
20 hours a week that you guys could use
No,
her.
she's probably maybe 5 hours a week.
Yeah, so we may need to find someone else to kind of also help out.
I'm using somebody different.
Yeah.
I've completely shuffled my schedule around and we're doing everything because, works for Southwest School Corporation as an outreach, Spanish outreach, does a fantastic job, but she made herself available Wednesday afternoon, so we've had to push all our normal criminal stuff that we do on Monday and Tuesday to Wednesday afternoon, our chin, so then you start running into a lot of scheduling conflicts because the attorneys know you're doing your criminal work on Monday and Tuesday morning, and your chin's work on Tuesday afternoon. They're scheduling themselves in other counties on Wednesday, so We're doing a lot of juggling right now.
I know a person who used to interpret for the sheriff's department. I don't know if he might be able to come back and help. You know, he did it years ago. He studied, he took a couple semesters, went down in Mexico, and then he came back up here. And after he got his criminology degree and Spanish degree, he started interpreting. So he might be able to, that was years ago, but he might be able to come back and help.
Well, I think every little bit will help for right now, but I think we need to find a
Need to find a
long-term
permanent
solution
fix, though.
that
So
really would not only help us, but the county as a whole.
So what if the department's involved with, like the department heads involved, we get together and everybody kind of do a little bit of a time study here in the next couple days and come together to figure out how much time we'll have and where we're gonna house this individual, possibly who would have what, and then come back to the council with those answers and go from there. Would that sound reasonable?
sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, the more information we have, the better it would be, I think.
But I know everybody has their own individual needs, but until we put it on paper to see who has what and what amount of time, and where's this person going to sit whenever they're not in court, or we have to line all that out as well. So I would think that hopefully in the next couple days or weeks we could at least get together with people that of the department heads that kind of want this, and we can kind of hammer it out and we'll have a better plan of attack when we come back next time.
Who would lead that, Sean? I mean, would the judicial
I
part of it?
and I don't care.
Pardon me?
I said I can, or Marky.
Okay.
So we,
I mean,
I can work with Marky.
would you do that then,
Yeah.
I think, moving forward here?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're probably gonna be able to report to the commissioners before we have our next meeting, but, so, I know there's a lot of unanswered questions that do you have a question?
I just had one quick comment. I looked I was listening in the other room, and the state has something called emergency translator grants. So I don't know if that would be something, and I did send a copy of that link to the judges and the prosecutors. So that may be a short term, they may have grant dollars available. It looks like they do the grants that you were talking about. Looks like that period ended December 31st, but then it'll start again next year. But if they have emergency dollars that could get us through a couple months, that would help the county get their work done until that happens. So just thought it was something that you could, if you'd like to look at.
So do you want to vote or do you want to come up with a consensus to support the program?
I think that's what I'd like to ask for, so, unless any other questions first? We got everybody in the room here, it looks like, or just about everybody, so. I don't hear any questions, so let's have a show of hands, we can support what they're asking here. So consensus here on. So let's just try to move forward, work together, and see what we can do. So I appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you too. So you're gonna hang on for another one?
One more.
Okay, now.
I wish, I could probably say that or reserve a
Absolutely.
road.
I do it. I think that'll take the speed.
But for career change,
One of my friends, he's got a
and then the water.
Mexico for 100 years.
Next on the agenda is 911 Stewart.
Sure.
If you could come up and introduce yourself, and I don't know if Commissioner Blessinger's gonna.
Hi, Oh, I've got a whole presentation ready.
If you are prepared with the presentation, I would say, so, Stuart Wilson, the 911 director for Du Bois County, and of course, Chad, and I also have my assistant director, Kim Snyder, here as well. We have kind of been partnering with the commissioners in this, since the inception of this portion of the project. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, but if Chad's got a presentation prepared, we'll let him go, and then I certainly would be available to answer anything that you think would pertain directly to me and our operation in the center.
Good evening, thanks for having me. This is, it's always a pleasure to talk to the council. So we've talked about this, or I've discussed this with Stuart, of course, with the advisory board at 911 as well as Sean. So I think we have all those people in attendance one way or another. So hopefully we can provide all the information that the council will need. The reason I'm here really, the commissioners have funds available within our construction project that I suppose if we wanted to, we could move forward with this project. I didn't feel comfortable doing that because it's such a large amount of money. I wanted to get the council's support or lack of support. I guess I wanted to know where everybody stood on it before the commissioners moved forward. So at our commissioners meeting, I guess 3 weeks ago now, the Board of Commissioners decided, I presented to them the amount of the bid, the amount of the cost that this project would take, because I wasn't sure how they would feel about moving forward because it's so expensive, and there was a consensus on our board to move forward. I told them that I'd like to present it to you because I don't want to move forward with it if the county council isn't on board with it. So I guess what I'm going to do tonight is I'll present to you what I see as the positives and the negatives of moving the 911 Communications Center from its current location where it's been for several decades to the campus where the sheriff's department is. I'll start out with the positives and then I'll end with the negatives. Actually, I'll start with the negatives, get those out of the way. Because I want to give a clear picture, a full picture of what we're getting ourselves into. And really there's 3 things that I put down that I thought were negative things about moving forward with this. One would be anytime you do a move and you disrupt an office, I think the change is going to be there's going to be some disruption for the 911 staff, and there'll probably be growing pains with the electronics being moved, with just, find where the bathroom is. It's a new place. It's I think there's always a bit of a disruption there. Staying in the same place we are now, people know what they're doing. They're uncomfortable. So it may cause a little bit of stress for the staff. One staff member, or maybe more, Stuart could let us know, said that the facility being next to community corrections was, they were concerned about safety. So I have that down as a negative. And then I also have it down as a positive because to where I stand, the way I see this is that being next to the sheriff's department or in the same building with the sheriff's department and having a law enforcement presence there 24 hours a day would be a strength. That I would feel more secure. There's very little crime that happens in the parking lot at the sheriff's department. So that's that. The number one negative, of course, is it costs a lot of money. The original cost of this plan, and this would be including our general contractor, and then the plumbing, electrical, all of those I have down a total of $782,000 for the complete project, to take a cell block, demolish it, and get it ready for the needs of the 911 center. That total includes, when we first got these bids, they gave us a price that was about $16,000 less than that. That was several weeks ago. Then one of the contractors came back and said, the way the market is and the way ordering things, and contractors won't hold their prices now because the prices go up every week on things. And so they bumped up the project $15,785, and that's what got us to the $782. Since that time, and since I even put this presentation together, our contractor, our consultant, construction manager, Shireman, said that they pushed back on that and said that, no, you're gonna have to eat that. You haven't given them time to even consider the first price first. So we would be probably closer to $765,000, somewhere in that range. Because whenever he said that we're not paying that, I said, well, how's the contractor gonna feel about that? He said, well, they're gonna have to eat it. So I don't know how those conversations went, but that works in our favor. So $765,000, that's the negative. I mean, that's a lot of money. So we'll go to the positives.
Can I put some clarification on there?
Yes, sir.
That's just for the construction part. That does not include new equipment. I think that's, everybody should know that as well.
So if we move the 911 center, communication center to the sheriff's department campus, or we don't, the expenses that we're looking at 911 this year is gonna be, using the latest estimates that we have, which are a year old probably, would be about $250,000. That'll update radio, communications. What else?
Yeah.
What are those
So
other?
when I came in as director, there was a update plan kind of in the works. It was already a quoted project for a new radio console, which is the most significant price and need-wise piece of equipment in our building. And that quote at the time was $190,000. That quote is long since expired. When I came in, I kind of wanted to put the brakes on everything to be as frugal and investigate the need and make sure that we wanted to spend this right then. And this conversation about move came up. We've placed the radio console update, which I'm sure there have been at least 2 price increases since that last quote from talking to a radio vendor. Both of those increases are around the 5% mark, so we're probably knocking on $200,000 for the radio console project. Plus, we have a CAD server, which is computer-aided dispatch server, that was due to be bought last year that we didn't purchase, because if we make a move, ideally we would be moving into a new center with new equipment. If we can wait a year or 2 on that piece of equipment reasonably, then we need to wait. So I think those efforts to be frugal, they pay off in the aspect that it's going to make the move easier to facilitate. They hurt you in the aspect that costs go up every day. But I still strongly believe the right thing to do for the center, for the knowledge that I've gained in the time that I've been there, and speaking with other 911 directors that have built new 911 centers, the right thing to do is just wait and do it in a one-shot deal. And that way we have a far smaller gap in our operations, and we have to solve how we're going to move, because it's not like we can shut down ever. We can't shut down for a second, let alone a week, to move pieces of equipment, or 2 or 3. It's just not reasonable. And we can't do it the same as we did it in 2002 when we moved out of the jail to where we're at now. That was a different time. I just saw numbers in the looking back section of the Herald from 1997. Our call volume was 15,000 calls a year. We had 38,000 last year. We're busy, and we just can't facilitate the move in the same aspect that we did when we moved 20 years ago. Our work of the day just is not going to permit it. So we're being as frugal as we can, because I told Chad too, I'm a taxpayer. It's my tax money too, and I don't want to be wasteful. But we have incredibly important work that we do there, and we don't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to emergency services and answering those 911 calls. So I know it's expensive. I cringe at the amount that I'm going to be coming to you and saying, hey, I need this X amount of dollars for equipment. And I don't even know what that amount is. It's going to be a lot. I don't want to brace everybody that it's going to be a big ask. I know right off the top of my head, we've put off $250,000 in purchases in just the time that I've been at 911. In 8.5 months, we've put off $250,000 in purchases. So those, we just kicked those down the road. We still have to make them, no matter where we go, or what facility we move into, or if we stay exactly where we're at. Those purchases they're in the pipeline, I believe so.
And that was I was going to address that another positive of moving is the continuity of service. We'll have the new equipment, we'll have a new facility. Ideally, we flip a switch from now the phone calls don't go to St. Charles Street, they go up there. Whereas if we replace the equipment here, there'll be a little bit of downtime, but we have reciprocity with other counties. So either way we do it, they're going to do a good job. They're professionals. They're doing a wonderful job. Stuart's been doing a great job with Ken out there. I was nervous bringing in a new guy, whenever that happened, and it's worked out as well or better than we could have hoped. So I appreciate the work that they're doing. Any other questions on that? But so we're going to be out. He's going to come ask for $300,000 at some point if we move or if we don't. So, but that is a part to something to consider for sure. Number one, we'll share a campus with the sheriff's office and EMA. In the event of a local catastrophe, these county offices can utilize the Emergency Operations Center. That will be a shared asset on this campus, and they'll be able to work collaboratively. We'll also lessen the time it takes for deputies or prosecutors to collect information that's regularly provided to them by 911. There's some administrative things that they go back and forth, and not a huge thing, but it's a thing that will save time between the offices. The 911 Communication Center has served us well for decades, but is now not appropriate for our needs. The new location provides proper offices for the director and the assistant director, a second restroom, and appropriate space for today and future dispatcher needs. So this is not just going to meet the staff that we utilize daily now. It's looking forward to 10 years when, or they would probably say sooner, but 10 years from now when we need to put another person on the floor regularly, we will have a spot for them. The restroom situation, we've had one, and it's, there's men and women that work there, and people like having their own space. I think a proper office has a restroom for their staff, and also the offices that they're using now aren't suitable. They're very cramped. Was one of them a closet probably initially?
Yeah, I think
So.
Okay.
And then also, these are folks that are gonna be there on 12-hour shifts pretty often, and they don't get to leave. And I don't know if everybody's aware of that. They don't get an hour to go run to McDonald's and stretch their legs and things. They stay in that facility, so they're gonna have an improved break area to at least stand up from their desk, walk around, and it's in the same room, but something that's a little better location for them to take their breaks. Security and safety have been a concern for 911 staff for years. Being attached to and sharing a parking lot with the sheriff's department, I feel will increase security. I know that with the previous director, she had to ask for cameras, which the county provided. She had asked for bulletproof glass. It wasn't provided, but there's just been concerns because they're out there all by themselves, and the staff will be coming in and out on their shift at midnight, right? So sometimes that can be scary. And I believe Mr. Wilson actually even mentioned that there was I don't know the whole story, and it's probably not important for public consumption, but there was a scary person loitering around recently.
We had a mentally challenged individual that came to our center to complain about a sheriff's deputy, and we thought he was the lawn care service guy. He had a baseball cap on, and we just about let him in our center. So that's a recipe for disaster, to have that standalone facility. I know we're just on the south side of town, but our help, if we need law enforcement for an intruder or a real attack, they're probably 5 minutes away. And that's a long 5 minutes in an office building, because that building out there is really no more secure than any office building you can imagine. And I know security is a big concern. Coming from the law enforcement world, I get it. And I know it's a big concern for the courthouse. It's a big concern for this building. It worries me that our current setup, that I think a grown person, if they wanted to, they could pull their way right through those doors into our 911 center. But fortunately, they don't know where we're at, and they don't know how to find us sometimes. But you can Google us, and you will get our exact address. So anybody that's smart enough to use Google or sane enough to use Google can find us. It's a concern that I have. I certainly would feel a lot safer having been an employee of that complex, and having been an employee when dispatch was contained in the jail back in the day. That's where they were at when I started working there. To know for peace of mind that jail officers and deputies are literally just down a hallway or a few steps away, that's a big peace of mind. There's some other things that are being considered security-wise, obviously with the design plan. We've had some discussions with them that I think cover it more thoroughly, but that would be my take on the security aspect.
A big component of this, and this is where Mr. Werner's plays a part, this opens up space needed by the Dubois County Health Department. COVID-19 has further compounded health department space problems that they've had. it compounds those immensely. Here are several points that talk about what they could do with that space, because I think Mr. Policeman and I talked about, well, what's going to happen when we move EMA up there? What's going to happen to the space downstairs? And what's going to happen to the space that they're currently occupying? And so I asked Mr. Warner, here's some of the feedback that he provided. Additional office spaces, these aren't in any particular order, but these are some of the needs that they have. Within the next few weeks, they're going to have 3 employees without their own office. This is talking about the health department. 1 is stationed in a copy room. 1 is using other employees' offices when available. And the new nurse will be in the same situation when hired. There's nowhere for them. If you've not visited their location, I recommend you do, just to walk around and see. We had to get a ladder one day. You got to move 6 things out of the way to get to the ladder. Use the ladder to put those 6 things back. It's just kind of, it's like the neighbor that hoards. You know, it's just like you got so much stuff you can't get to any of it. And not saying that they're hoarding, they just have a lot of material that they have. It's kind of piling up. Space is needed for a conference or meeting room that would fit their needs. The current conference room is not large enough for all of their staff to sit at a table together, which makes staff meeting difficult. They could rearrange the office to consolidate storage in one organized area or manner. Currently, they have storage in 3 different places, plus the enclosed trailer that's outside. That's half full of storage items as well. In the future, point 4, in the future, they may utilize some of the new space for another clinic room. Insurance companies have approached the health department about having another facility in Du Bois County to do lab draws for the public, and now we don't have the space to do that, and they have to turn that work down, which is needed in our community. We just don't have the space to provide the service. The immunizations waiting area is currently too small. Having this additional space would improve operations to rearrange the office to provide additional space for people. And it was also mentioned that the extra space will go a long way in helping with the space crunch the department faces. They've been creative and have done the best they can so far. Again, this is a solution to a problem they had even before COVID happened. So now that they have additional staff and additional things going on out there, it shows a need for sure. Regarding the finances, we've had a meeting with Sandy and Mary. We've reviewed some of the finances as well. There is money within the existing budget that we've already have approved for the jail project, that there's money available within there that would cover this. So it's not as if we are taking our $26 million bill and adding another $700,000 on top of it. Within the construction, there are contingencies put in. You know, something has to change. There's I think $1.5 million of contingency, and what do they call
the other one's allowances?
Allowances that each of the contractors holds for example, we have a gas meter. We sized it at this size. They needed one that's this size, so it costs $4,000 more. It's in the project already, and those things can get done without having to go through an approval process again. So the funds are there, and we could afford it. My question to you is this something that we find that valuable enough to make this move? I think that's where I would leave it, or I would push it back on you for feedback.
Any specific questions on the project or ideas, you know?
I thought the call volume that Stuart mentioned in 25 years was, over 100% increase. That surprised me, so having a nice streamlined facility is going to be important going forward, because I don't think it's going to get less.
Yeah, I would expect, and looking at our numbers from the year 2020 to 2021, that we had a 911 advisory board meeting recently, and we kind of covered some of this, and Chad and Craig sit on that board, so they're a little more in the know and a little more informed than everyone else. But we had just a shade over 10% increase in 1 year. We are doing things, we're doing more than double the work on 50% of the staff. So that speaks to our efficiency and how well our people are doing and how good our equipment is that's allowing them to do those jobs. But that is not going to change. There was a little bit of a decrease, which was kind of weird in COVID. There was, I don't want to keep it from you, that in 2020, our call volume went down just a shade, which was really unforeseen. But now it's back up and then some. So that is not going to change. People are quicker to call 911. People are quicker to request emergency services, and there's more emergency services out there that we are dispatching for. There are more firemen every day. There's commonly now 5 EMS trucks instead of 4. There are more police officers on the street than there's ever been in our county, and that's Huntingburg, the sheriff's office. This is not, emergency services is not going to go away. The work of the day is not going to be smaller. I was shocked that it was this high, that we've had that kind of increase in not even 25 years. It's more than double the amount of work. But if you take the snapshot in time in 1997, the sheriff's office had 9 deputies, and now they've got 22 or 23. And we had a staff of 9 dispatchers, and now we've got 15. The city of Jasper had 14 officers, they've got 28. It shouldn't surprise us, but it's eye-opening to see that volume of workload increase, because every one of those calls is work that was done in that center on those pieces of equipment.
Another component that I think is interesting that the board may not be aware of is and please correct me if I'm wrong, every cell phone call made in the city of Jasper or anywhere else in Bois County would come to the center.
Yeah.
All of the landline phone calls that aren't internet-based, that voice over internet protocol phone calls, go to the city of Jasper. So you're aware that less and less people every year are going to have landline phones at their homes, and more people are getting cell phones. I think we're pretty saturated. Just about everybody has a cell phone now. All 100% of those calls go here. So our volume, the calls that used to go to Jasper will more likely come here at a
There's been a
representative.
slow transition over the years. We get about 13,000 911 calls a year, and then we get far more non-emergency calls. But 13,000 was our number roughly for 2021. The city had about 1,800 that went into their dispatchers at the Jasper City Dispatch. So it's a big number. You start breaking it down per day, it's a huge volume of work that occurs in there. We have to give our employees a good workspace. I know it's been brought up, but I will harp on a couple of points. One being, we have such a need for 2 bathrooms. I mean, to have men and women have 3 and 4 and 5 people in one office sharing one bathroom is difficult at best, and does put our employees in an uncomfortable spot sometimes. And then the other thing is the break area, the expanded kitchen area of the design. Right now, we have a microwave, we have a toaster oven, we have an air fryer. We give them these stuff, or they do DoorDash. Thank God DoorDash exists for our staff. But then they sit at their radio console position and eat with 3 keyboards in front of them, a bank of monitors. We do not even have a separate table for them to sit and have a meal. And that's unfair, that's unrealistic. For a 12-hour shift, to have an employee sitting in one spot, one position. This should allow them to at least step away, even if it is just for a few minutes, to be able to step out of that position and maybe get out of that mode for just a few minutes while they have a sandwich. That's pretty critical. That's a big portion. There's a lot of other positives. Shared workspace is huge. Having a shared training space with EMA and the sheriff's office, anytime you can share those spaces and combine those resources, you're saving money in the long run. Shared storage space that we've talked about with the sheriff's office and EMA, and just being a good partner with those agencies, I think we'll have the benefit is going to pay off that we are able to function in this size facility, where if we were a standalone facility, then I need my storage space. Then I need my training area, my meeting space. We just don't have it right now. We had a 911 advisory board meeting, and that's a packed little room that we're all sitting in there on top of each other in our little conference room, which is also not private. So if I need to have if I have a discipline situation with an employee, I have no private place to have that. We have to speak quietly hope that the WIC employees don't hear us, or the health department employees don't hear us.
I think at our last 2 meetings, they turned the light off on us.
Yeah, they did, they shut the lights off, so it's because our lights are on the health department.
So we hope the lights go out, so then.
I could,
Rest of it.
Kind of getting on that, how much have you guys talked about or discussed with, the health department? What it would cost for them to renovate if the move was made to have a workable space for them?
No, we haven't reached.
So that would be
We haven't
another
talked about that
expense
part
there
yet.
to renovate that area so that the health department could make their offices or whatever they need it to be.
That will be a future cost for sure.
Yeah. It'd be nice to know what that cost ballpark might be as well.
Well, getting back, I guess, something that everybody needs to know too, they don't just sit there and take calls. There's other things that are going on with the courts that goes on too. So it's not just, if there's no calls for 10 minutes that they sit back, it's not what goes on. There's paperwork, there's a lot of,
there's a big caseload that comes from the prosecutor's office. We run, so for every, I'm sure that they've provided numbers to the council for criminal cases per year. So every one of those criminal arrests, prosecutor's office requests a criminal history bureau, which is done through our data terminal at our center. That's time that our dispatchers, I think Kim spent just the other day, spent about 4 hours straight through of working on nothing but work for the prosecutor's office. And that's nose to the grindstone, nonstop, 4 hours straight. I mean, you think about that, just doesn't, that's not the norm for anywhere you can imagine. We have an immense volume of paper that goes in and out of our facility because, as you can imagine, this is all confidential information. There's certain rules that we have to follow. There's no electronic communication on this kind of stuff. It is one of the benefits that we would be a little bit closer for shuffling of papers, which I hate. It's inefficient, but it is how we have to do our work. We wouldn't have to have sheriff's deputies making a drive across town to go pick stuff up. We'd be closer for the prosecutor's office. We'd be closer for the city of Jasper. It'd be closer for me running recordings of 911 calls for criminal cases. There's a lot of shuffling of documents and things that would be eased by this. That's the selfish part of it, really. It saves me a little driving, it saves me a little time. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it was so convenient when I was a sheriff's deputy to run that information, to run a criminal history on an individual, and be sitting in the squad room and walk down the hallway into our dispatch center and say, hey, can I have my paperwork? And then grab your paperwork and go right back to work. Instead, they got to stop what they're doing. They got to drive across town. We've done it over different ways and we've managed. I think we had a good solution. Talking with Chad, I'm proud of the solution that they came up with 20 years ago to get us 20 years farther down the road because we needed space then too. So we need to do the right thing to solve this again for another 20 years or 30 years and allow for that future growth. The plan being that we have 4 fully outfitted terminals with future growth for 2 additional terminals. I hope that's enough. I worry sometimes if it isn't enough that people will be upset with us and the decisions that we were making. But I also want to be frugal. We don't need wide open spaces at $460 a square foot either. I want to be.
But kind of for the future.
But we have to. I mean, if we don't, it's really going to bite us.
The first time.
Yeah, it's going to bite us bad. And we've got to get somewhere. We can't. We have a pretty inefficient use. We have a very cobbled together stuff. If you look at our storage in our building, it's very typical county office cobbled together. And this office was giving this away, so we took it and we're going to use this and we're going to take this from the extension office is giving this away and the health department's giving this away. And boy, 20 years of that leads to a pretty inefficient workspace and less than ideal for the staff with them having to sit at those console positions. That may have been okay 20 years ago, but that was not a good solution.
What is that building to the north side? It's a pretty big building.
That's a Frontier. You talk about it kind of looks like a twin to our building.
Yeah.
It's a Frontier owned. They're actively in there. I don't know how much actual work occurs, but there's people there every day, all day.
Okay.
And it's of similar age, I think, to ours. I don't know. I haven't seen it for sale sign yet.
So, that smaller, remember when we went out and visited, one of the directors was saying something about that, like a containment.
Oh, the
building.
little the communication shed
Yeah.
right at the base of the tower, that houses radio equipment that is for that tower site. And then also equipment that is a microwave link that transmits to the tower site that we lease at Greener Road, which is our primary communications tower. So it is a current use for some communications and backup in case the Greener site is down. We can still do paging for emergency services, fire departments, and EMS off of that tower site at the jail. So inside that shed, it's pretty bare bones. I mean, there's a HVAC unit on the wall because we have to cool it because the equipment gets too hot in summer. We have to keep it warm because it can't get below 20 or 25 degrees. I don't know, there's limits. I found out when it went out over the summer, so we had to buy a new one. But it's inside there's a significant amount of radio equipment. And the new site there has been some foresight. There is a communication shed basically at the base of the tower that was moved. I've been communicating with the radio vendor about the idea of this as we've gone along to hopefully save money and not have to go back.
And their vendor was involved. We have the
Yeah.
appropriate conduit from this building back to there. We actually added one just in case this project did go through. So we tried to think through the move and so we're not gonna have to make more modifications outside of the cell block area.
I mean, I want this to be as efficient as it can. I can't think of a better plan. I cringe at the thought of a standalone facility and the lack of teamwork and emergency operations center ability that you have when you have standalone. I'd love to be right next to EMA in the event of an emergency. We could set up operations together because we're going to be working together in an emergency. It benefits us a bunch that we're on the same place as the sheriff has his office, because obviously if we have a large scale natural disaster, he's going to be directly involved as well. I think you can what if anything to death, but that shared space, the shared training space, it's going to improve teamwork and partnership atmospheres within the county that I think only benefits the counties. And those relationships don't cost anything. So that's important.
I think I just want to add to that. I think when this came in pretty expensive here, we talked about a standalone facility. We have to put it on the campus out there someplace, or we thought that it's not going to be any cheaper. Like you say, you're going to need more space. You're away from it. I just think there's a lot of positives to doing what we're doing here. And you covered the question I had. I wasn't involved in the design that much, but that we do have technically another 50% or two more spaces that we not using.
Yes.
So we got the growth built in. So I think that's all positives. The only thing I want to say to the council, we got if we do have $1.5 million contingency in this project, we've used some of it because some unexpected things happened out there, but nothing huge. This is kind of huge, but if we would get into more issues, that's the disadvantage of, but then there's a lot of balance there yet. We have to, and we're pretty far along with the site work. We got it's not like unforeseen, a bunch of dirt fill we got to do over or something like that. So I feel it. I feel good about it. With the contingency that we have, that we can definitely afford to do this. So I think what we want to do here is, I think Commissioner Blessinger said, these contractors are getting edgy with the cost increases every week, and we have to move forward here. I'd like to really have a consensus tonight to allow, or to give our blessing to move forward. So unless somebody's got another important question, we can. There's a lot involved here. We can go on forever here, but does anybody have any
I mean, I think the only thing is time frame. So we're looking into 23 before this move actually happens. Is that correct?
I think it has that timeline in.
Yep,
They're talking
that's it.
mid-year 2023, and then I'm not, I think what's gonna happen is, if this project continues to move forward, we're gonna have a brand new constructed 911 center, and we're not gonna have equipment to put in it, because I think we're gonna run into some long lead times on furnishings, servers, anything in the world that takes a microchip. It's really hard to get right now. So, but if that's where we end up, I'd be thrilled. That'd be a good problem to have. At least we have the space to go.
So it benefits their organization because they can start ordering those things saying we need it in a year, which most time when you order something, you're not saying that, but that's what we need currently. At our last construction meeting, we had Wire Electric bring up that we got in on our project at the right time. We were able to order things before the crunch, but they're starting to see some of the crunch now. So they're saying, we haven't had any problems yet, but we may have some in a few months. So one of the good things about ordering, getting them locked in now, one, the price won't get any higher because we'll have a contract. Two, they can start ordering today and not needing it for a year, which will be convenient. And the way a project like this works is they can order things, and if luckily they get them in early, they put them in his storage. We have a construction manager who keeps track of what assets we have. It gets managed so that things don't disappear. We don't have to pay for something twice. And they can store it. And we'll be ready when that space is available.
So just to kind of understand what the numbers are, you're saying construction's gonna be, like you said, $765,000 to get what you need, with all the bathrooms, the office space, all that stuff. And then you mentioned around 200,000 for the equipment that you're.
200,000, I think, is just the radio.
Just the radio. So would there be a lot more?
Yes.
About how much more would that be?
I think we're looking at, I'm gonna rough guess some equipment. Our 911 answering portals at 4 positions is probably $45,000. We have a data recording server that we paid $30,000 when we bought it in 2018. We have a CAD server that's $10,000. It's due for replacement now. It's 8.5 years old. We have a mapping server that's about $8,000. And then we have furniture because they don't sit at a regular desk. This is incredibly specialized furnishings. I would not know what it would cost, but I'm going to guess. We heard from another 911 director. They were talking about like $30,000 for 6 positions. I mean, this is it's expensive stuff. I know it's a huge ask, and that's why I'll be as open as I can about everything. I don't want.
Well, yeah, and I just didn't want any surprises as thinking.
And I wasn't doing the math in my head because I'm terrible at math in my head. But that's stuff right off the top of my head. That build out gets us carpet, doors, lighting, which is pretty specific, some cameras and surveillance equipment, but not the meat and potatoes of what our telecommunicators sit at and work with every single day in and out.
Furniture and equipment.
Furniture
That's what it's.
and all that electronic equipment. Of course, it's all computers. It's all incredibly specific and incredibly expensive. But we just bought one 911 answering terminal. It's not even purchased yet. We're under contract for, and that was $15,400. Some of you might remember when I was in here talking about the terminal at Jasper City. That was the phone integration terminal and 1 position. So we would be looking at that phone integration server and 4 positions at about $5,000 a piece. I don't want to trivialize that amount, but boy, it adds up quick.
So I would assume that the $300,000 will say that's what I'm estimating for those pieces of equipment he's talking about that we're going to need. the most that we're gonna buy anyway for the existing facility.
Right.
So we're gonna need that, and that would probably cum cap dollars, not out of this project. So that was those would be dollars we would.
Separate from the construction cost, right?
Right, it'd be separate from that. So out of the construction money, it'd be the 760, 300 that he would be coming to ask for cum cap, and then I would estimate another $30,000 of what I would say would be a contingency of stuff we're not thinking about. Moving the things that we are going to continue to use, getting them from there, getting them over there, getting them hooked up. So that's where that would be my estimate from what I look at.
And then any reconstruction in the future for health department.
Right,
Probably
fine.
want to do that as well.
Mhm.
So whatever that is, so we're looking at $1.34 million total. $700 and some thousand plus another, I calculate $350,000 for the equipment move, and then probably a couple $100,000 or maybe $50,000 for reconstruction of the health department, get them in their offices eventually.
Just
For the price.
Well, that would be a separate showing, we'll probably have to.
Well, that'd be a separate
Yeah,
thing too, but
yes.
we have to consider that if we're gonna make the move. If we're not gonna make the move, it's not gonna be considered towed at all. Something else gonna have to be done.
So I would look at a total, I would have taken it probably about a 1.15 is what I would say a total. If you count doing some minor remodeling out there, putting new carpet in, because the carpet will look terrible when we take the stuff out. Getting it more for them, that's about where I would be with it. But it could be higher, depending on what they need.
My
If they-
estimate was a little bit higher than that, but yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it's,
Either way, neither of those prices are cheap.
yeah,
And there is a lot of unknowns
but
with those portions of it. We have contracted for a small initial amount of consulting work that we would probably expand upon as we work through this project. I mean, we're gonna try to do it as smart.
I'm not trying to
efficient
deter
as we can.
anything like that from the need and from the benefits or anything like that. I just want to get the approximate cost so that we know what we're going into and cost benefit analysis of the whole thing. I'm not saying it's a not, I'm
I
saying
recognize.
it's something that would be a very good benefit to have 911, EMA, Sheriff's Department, all you guys right there.
It'd be
in front.
huge.
It would be a
We
huge
do not.
benefit for communication, for cohesiveness and working together.
Right.
I've been in the 911 center. I know how crunched you guys are and how not conducive it is for a very good working
It's tough.
place. It's
And
not.
we don't, we have an emergency plan for emergency operations. EMA has put together an emergency plan that works as good as it can work, but I don't even know that it's realistic. Maybe a concept, and, we kind of take residents of the city of Jasper, and I think they would tire of us very quickly, and we would have to find another solution very quickly that's going to be incredibly expensive. I mean, this is a terrifying amount of money to me, brand new 911 director coming in here and saying, hey, yeah, I want your support for this project. It's $200,000 over what in my head I thought it should cost. But I'm not a construction guy and I don't build 911 centers. I don't like the idea of standing here as a taxpayer asking for 1.15 or 1.3 or 1.4 million dollars. I don't want to add to
The good thing is, like Chad said, it's kind of already built in the
Yeah, this
cushion
is kind of our one,
project is.
I believe,
It's
this is our one chance.
one chance of kind of getting it without having to pay that extra
I
in the
don't
future.
know how we,
I don't know how we
I don't know how we fund it next year. Or the year after, But I know that we'll need it next year and the year after and the year after.
I think it's a smart use of that space. Eventually, it's gonna be a time where the space out there is gonna be needed more by the health department, and you're gonna be more crunched for space as time goes on. It just seems like a wise use of that cell block space. And the timing is it just seems like it's the right time. The timing of how everything's falling into place here.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'd like to just have a show of hands of who's in favor of the move. Okay, so I think, so let's get it on and lock the prices in so we can.
Before they try to bump it. Okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I need to step away from the
Let's take it, we're gonna take a.
I'm gonna have to wait longer every day than I'm supposed to.
Yes, he does.
But really, it was.
Yes, he does.
That's the one that was sitting there
Yes,
waiting.
thanks for coming in.
I really like your mask, though.
Thank you. I got, like, since we went to Disney when they first started doing that, I like to start buying a couple, and I think I got about 20 of them now. That, and now that I have to wear it for the next day or two,
Sure.
you know, it works out.
So, something going on at
I
home.
think this is bad.
My daughter actually was sent home
Yeah.
last Thursday, but she was sent home the Thursday before because another student tested positive.
I just.
So I
like-
had to stay home with her because my wife didn't want to take off work. So I stayed home with her Thursday,
This is
Friday.
kind of.
So I started getting headache, chills, achy joints and stuff like that on Friday. And Saturday, I went and got those home tests. She tested negative and my wife tested negative. And I was with our daughter for that whole time. So I was like, well, I didn't get it from her. I had to have gotten it from school. So I had to self-quarantine up in the side bedroom, second bedroom, all last week for the most part. I taught from home on Thursday, and then I was able to go back to school on Friday because I have to be quarantined or I have to be off of school for a certain number of days. So I was back Friday and today. So don't have any more symptoms. That's all I had for Friday around 1:02. In the afternoon till about Saturday, about mid-morning and afternoon, something like that. So about 24, 36 hours. I felt headache and stuff like that. After that, nothing. I have like congestion.
It's like I do a police project.
It's not really good. I don't know if that's related or not, but I'm on medication for that, so there's no fever or anything. It's just kind of strange.
I'll come back in a minute. Here's the stuff.
I'll put my watch on cruise button.
Oh, I had to put that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so cold, mate.
You mean turn it up?
No, everyone else will run.
I was just like, I just thought it was getting up, like, just continue talking.
We have a wood burning stove in our house, so I can make it as warm as I want all winter long. Whenever I go anywhere, I'm gonna, I need a snuggie.
My wife likes to keep our house at like 68 degrees or lower. She would keep it lower if she could, but that's way too cold for me.
Isn't she afraid the child will freeze?
It's warmer upstairs, like, so if we keep it at 68, it's like 70 something upstairs for whatever reason, but it helps with her asthma and stuff, keep it cooler, so.
Yeah, this helps with the utility bill. Thank God for the wood burner. I'd be like, it's all year, all winter.
It's actually been great that I could stay upstairs in our side bedroom because I have a nice little space heater that I can just turn on and leave on, and she's nice and cold, 68 degrees downstairs, and I'm nice and warm at 76, 77 degrees upstairs.
There you go.
Don't know what it's gonna be like when I have to go back downstairs to our bedroom.
Renee, are you ready? Are you gonna?
I'm just here to answer
You
questions.
just have, okay, you don't want to make any comments?
I mean, I can if you need to, but
Well, I mean, not necessarily, I mean, I think
I'll be happy to do whatever.
the next thing on the agenda here for the, is the downtown revitalization project discussion. We were presented, I think it was the November meeting, the city of Jasper came in and presented, what when you were getting into final planning of the project. So we had a chance to go through that discussion. The city came to we've been working together with both attorneys, Greg Sharon and Renee Kabrick, to work on the interlocal agreement, because we're doing work not only on the city property, but also on our county property. And what we looked at, I think we were sent, the new ADA ramp is going to be part of this, this construction. It was I looked over the documents over the weekend. The only change that they made, I think.
I can answer. I think today, between Chad and I, we got 3 or 4 different phone calls about the change in the bid documents going from the ramp as a part of the main project to the ramp as an alternate on the bid documents. And that was really twofold. One, so that you can clearly see in the bid responses the actual cost of the ramp. And then secondly, we had a meeting with the county, a week and a half ago, I think, about, and through that process, we kind of identified the fact that the ramp actually hadn't been formally approved. And there was no one in the meeting that was prepared to say with 100% certainty that the ramp was actually going to be approved. So we just said, well, it's not going to change anything. So we can just move that as a separate alternate onto on the bid package, which required virtually not very much work. And so that's what we did. So I don't think that changes anything with respect to the project itself. It's just that that's an itemization or an itemized line item now that you can see the actual cost of.
And I think the way I guess the problem or the issue I had a little bit with it is because, the way our interlocal agreement was set up, it said construction. And when you looked at the way I looked at that construction, the ramp wasn't really part of the construction. It was an alternate bid add. So that's why I called Greg this morning and asked him if he could take a look at that to make sure that there's no issues, after the bid process goes and whatever we decide to do tonight, that we know what we're getting for the dollars that we put into it.
And so, Greg and I did work through that today. So I don't know if you all got a copy, the most recent copy, but he did send to me the latest version that made changes with respect to that language.
And we can pull it up. He sent it to me because he wanted me to agree on it too. But I didn't send it out because he said it doesn't really affect anything. I think it's just the wording, and then we know what we're getting. If we give our cost, which I think everybody knows, $341,000 something, that it's gonna the projected cost of our improvements on our county property, then we know what we're getting for it. And that ramp is definitely included now, the ADA ramp. If we so that's in that meeting. I don't know if we were all 3 in that meeting with the city. I tried to send out it's kind of the synopsis of what we discussed in that meeting. And I don't know if 3 of us, Becky and Greg and I, was in that meeting. I don't know if you want to make comments about the meeting anymore and what we covered. If we want to start that way, we got to start some way here.
I feel like you covered a lot in there. I think one thing that was a takeaway for me is, I guess there's 2 different ways to look at this. Like anything else, if you were redoing your bathroom, for whatever reason, you're not likely going to replace it the exact same way that you had it if you would have an issue. And that's what the city's doing here. It's an infrastructure project, and they're not going to replace it back the same way. They want to enhance it and make it better. So that's what this is about. Elmer brought up the fact that maybe whole infrastructure is the city's responsibility. So maybe we look at it as what we want to contribute to helping the county seat and help the building. So I think you can spin it most ways you want to. And I think that's interesting. So I think both ways are ultimately, how do we get there and what contribution do we want to provide? That's where it's at. So do you want to add any more to?
Well, I think that, it's unfortunate that we can't all participate in those meetings, but it is what it is. It was a good meeting, and I appreciated the dialogue with the county and the city. But, we've got 100 maybe plus year old infrastructure in some instances. We've got a street that has been on the radar of the street department ever since I've been the city attorney. So that's 10 years now, that we kept putting off because we knew that eventually we were going to do something. We've been really, for the last 10 years, really focusing on what we can do to improve amenities in the city of Jasper to get people here. I mean, we all know that one of our biggest obstacles for our local employers is people, getting talent to the city. And what do we do? How can we attract people? And when you bring someone into town and you drive them around the square at, 6 o'clock in the evening on any evening of the week and it's completely empty, people wonder what's going on. It's a beautiful square. I don't want to take anything away from it. We've done an excellent job maintaining it, but as Craig said, and that he's exactly right, the infrastructure has to be improved. We have to do that. So this was our opportunity, and we've been working on the plan for now probably over 5 years, and we think we have a great plan. We've I think accomplished what our goals were, but answered all of the concerns that were expressed about the amount of pavers and the amount and the cost, and just the concerns that the public had that our council members brought to us. So I think we've got a plan that everybody will enjoy, and it accomplishes our goals. But from a city perspective, we think we're asking the county to acknowledge that everything we're putting into that project is serving the county. Not only just the courthouse itself with ingress, egress, and parking and all of those things, but the county, the whole county, just by being the county seat and, an attraction, a destination for people, for potential employees, for workers, the entire county. So we feel like the ask is not unreasonable, but whatever the county decides to do as far as contribution, we will be grateful for it. It's about the extent of it.
I think, on concern, our cost, I shouldn't say the ask, our cost, budgeted construction costs are about $340,151.12. That's what the engineer's estimate is for our property. And that includes, the design, general conditions, and a contingency in there of, I think it was 5% or whatever. The thing I brought up in that meeting, I'm concerned as a county, our edit funds, or I think our uncommitted county edit funds, are $852,000. So, that's concerning to me. I mean, we will get the 22 edit funds coming in, which is roughly about 2.5 million. But the problem is, when we prepared our 22 budget, we had to move $3,878,000 from our general fund, edit fund into their general fund to make the budget balance. So, I mean, I can't see, you know, I guess my concern is, you guys can share your thoughts, you know, how do we continue to spend money, like, you know, and I don't see how this is gonna balance at the end of the year, or, you know, when we prepare our next budget. You know, we did give a cost, employee cost increase, wage increase. But, you know, that's only looking like it could be worse, you know, this year, you know, with the way the economy's moving. So, I mean, that's something I want you, so we all know when we can discuss it here. You know, my thought is, also, you know, we owe the county, or we owe the city to do our part, and cover our costs, for sure, as a basis, you know, I feel. And, you know, we kind of gave them support. I think the commissioners gave them support during the design project, that we would, you know, indicated that we would cover our costs, that our part of it. And our part does include, from the way I read it, you know, from a border, a brick border around the square to the sidewalks, you know, everything inside, then from there out in. So the street is not part of this, the pavement, I'll call it. So we all understand what the 340,000 is. That's a, you know, that's a budget, you know, budget estimate,
Right.
or, you know, they call it an opinion budget, opinion.
Cost estimate.
Opinion.
Right.
So I'd like to hear, you know, how, I'd like to hear comments from all of us here, you know, because it's something, you know, we are, you know, this is my opinion, we are supporting the project by doing our improvements on our property. You know, we're paying for our sidewalks, we're doing this. That's not necessarily the case with the rest of the square. You know, we're not asking, I don't think they're asking any businesses to pay for their sidewalk, their curb. You know what I'm getting at. So just, you know, just so we understand the whole process.
Well, a couple things, so I don't forget, with respect to that, the sidewalks are ours. We own the sidewalks. That's where our right of way goes up to the edge of the buildings. So the property owners don't own any part of the project space, if you will, which is a little bit different than the county. And the county is the biggest employer on the square. So that again, I think it's a benefit. But the other thing that I wanted to be sure to mention is that these conversations, of course, were had in our meeting that I referred to earlier. And I think it was Becky, maybe you, that mentioned that because whether it's right or wrong, the comparison was made between what is being asked by the city on this project and what the county contributed to Honeyberg's project when it went through the Stellar program. And when we were having those discussions, Becky mentioned that the Honeyberg received their payment over time. And that is not out of the possibility on this project. In fact, if that's what the county decided to do, in order to be fiscally prudent, we would certainly work with you on figuring that out and spreading out that contribution over time.
And I think that is, you know, set up kind of in the local agreement, you know, we can kind of discuss that, because that is, obviously, that is a part of the agreement. So I don't know where we want to start. Doug, you want to start on your comments, or?
No. I'll let someone else start.
Well, I mean,
I'm
said.
still kind of processing right now, actually, so.
You want to start?
I'd like to call down, but I
Alex, do you want to make a comment, or?
She kind of alluded to what I was thinking. You know, obviously, before my time, you were gracious, the county was gracious with the city of Huntingburg. And obviously, Huntingburg's not the county seat, but I would just hope, and I think it's definitely in line, that comparable money is spent on Jasper's portion that we spent on Huntingburg's portion. And I think that's going to be the case. I just, it's multi-use, like you said, and, it's the county seat. We got the courthouse right there, so essentially everyone in the county uses this space. But I just hope with the comparative dollar-wise contributions from the county, to what we did at Huntingburg or less.
I mean, my only comeback to that, and I mentioned it in the meeting, is, that was paid over 4 years. It was, it leveraged $15 million in Stella grants. That 500,000, we leveraged $15 million worth of improvements. We paid for an overpass, which the county is now maintaining so that helped the whole county. And then we moved the city street department out of the flood zone, and they were gracious enough to allow us to store our 911 equipment or trailers in that.
EMS equipment.
EMA equipment. So we did gain, the whole county gained, and then it wasn't just 4th Street, so I mean, I just want the facts out there for all of us.
And it may have been an apples to oranges comparison. It's just something that I hear.
But it's a legitimate.
Well, it's something that we're supporting communities within the county. So supporting Huntingburg by giving X amount of dollars for that project, supporting Jasper area, supporting McFernan and different places. I think if we're gonna support one community, we need to support all of them. We need to support the entire county. And like you said, comparable, type of projects. I mean, Huntingburg was in a different scope, but it's still an improvement to the downtown area. Both of them. So, but like you said, I mean, it's a lot of money to ask for at once. So I do agree that we need to possibly spread it out over time so that we can manage the hit and not put ourselves in a bad situation.
Anybody else?
Mike, what was your thought on that though? Because you were saying 2 years. You would rather not see it spread out past 2 years, but I didn't know your thought on that.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on the amount,
Okay.
for one thing, but, I was hoping that we could, because it's only fair to the city to pay, they're gonna incur the first year, they're gonna incur our costs, which is 300, so it could be over 300,000. So, it's only fair to me that we pay for that, or why, it wouldn't be fair for them to finance that.
Oh, I agree.
So I'm just saying, do we want to spread the others out for 4 years? I don't know, I think budgeting wise, and I don't know.
Just take the ball in.
I just think.
So Brittany, how long a project is this for the city? Is this a year and a half, 2 years?
We will hopefully be finished with construction early spring of 2023.
About a year, a little over a year.
I think they said 380 something days. So, and that includes downtime. We're stopping construction for the merchants over the holidays. So from a point, maybe a week or 2 weeks before Thanksgiving until January. Not moving out, just stopping construction.
And I know Amy Kippenbrock, our clerk, will say something because we will be open early election, early
right.
voting.
And she has contacted me, and we did not put a schedule into the bid because we were told by everyone that if we tried to force a construction schedule onto the contractor, that the price would go way up. So it's going to be on us all to work with the contractor and develop a construction schedule that is the best that it can be for everybody around the square.
I'd like to hear comments from everyone. I looked at you, but you don't have
Mine
to
is
go
a
next.
little different. I would be comfortable with paying for the county's portion. I think we have a lot on our plate coming up, and it makes me a little nervous. Don't know what the next couple of years are gonna bring, I'm comfortable with only the county's portion right now.
Fair enough.
When we were at the meeting with the city, I said the same along the lines of what Alex said. I feel like it's keeping it simple, I guess, and making it, I guess, still a good contribution. I guess I was at 500,000. It's over and above what we're responsible for, but it's similar to Huntingburg. I know the city would rather have more than that, and I'm certain of that, there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess I was comfortable with 500,000, and I think I was liking 250 over each year for 2 years.
When you say the 500, that you're including our improvements, right?
Correct.
That's a lot.
As a lump sum, yeah, the total of 500,000. Yes.
Becky, can you comment?
I had 600,000 in mind.
And would you, it really wouldn't matter. I mean, you would think maybe spreading that over 2 years or 4 years?
At least 2, but, yeah, I wouldn't want it all in one lump sum. I don't think we can handle that, but
Okay.
2 or 3.
Charmaine, would you want to comment?
I'm smirking because I'm like, oh, 5, 6, I was thinking 7. Because the first year I would really like to make sure and pay for our portion, so that the city's not on the hook for our improvements. So 350,000 there, and I thought just to do that same amount the second year.
Okay. Doug, you want to comment now?
I wasn't thinking that much, to be quite honest. I was thinking more around comparable to what we did with Hummingbird, 500,000 at most. And then to spread that over at least 2 or 3 years to afford to not put us in a bad situation. But I was thinking more around what Craig was saying and what Alex was kind of alluding to.
Would, since at this point, Charmaine, you're kind of, so you're 700,000. Do you foresee, can you sleep at night knowing that?
I sleep great.
She's got a wood burner.
She has a wood burner.
You're warm?
I do get kind of warm at night.
Warm and toasted. No, I just wonder if I feel, I guess like and maybe I'm too into this, but with our balance on our edit fund is what I'm concerned about. We spend, so let's say we write them a check for, half, 350, whatever, 350,000. And then now we're down on our edit funds to, less than 500,000. So
Can I just input, as far as that is concerned, I think from a city's perspective, we would appreciate more getting the 700,000 and spreading that over a longer period of time, say 3 years, than making sure we get your 350 up front, because that 350 will be spent over time. We're not gonna have to write a check for the cost of the ramp when we sign the contract. It's not gonna be any different than our own costs, and that they will be incurred over the course of the entire project. So I think that if, from that standpoint, we would be fine with payments spread over time. And I would only just reiterate that we absolutely believe that this is a critical project for the county. I mean, the infrastructure is critical for the city and for the courthouse for that matter, because it's failing. That's water, stormwater, streets, sidewalk, all of it. The sidewalks are not ADA compliant. The parking spaces are not compliant with statutes. It needs to be improved. But again, just from an economic development perspective and talent attraction, And for the businesses down here, while there'll be some pains going through the project, once it's done, I mean, I think that they're gonna thrive. And it's really, it's critical, and it is going to be an asset, absolutely, for the entire county.
Can you speak at all to, I know I serve on the Indiana 15 board, and I didn't know if you were able to work with Lisa and get any grants through, like stormwater or.
Well, so the problem with using grant money, because that was our first avenue, or not, that started 5 years ago, at least to use that for a part of the project. But the problem is that if we use grant money, then we get thrown into that bucket of projects for which we have to get approval through the State Historic Preservation Office. And that makes the project more expensive, and the timeline is extended by at least 12 months. So we just determined that it wasn't gonna be worth it to try to seek grants for this project. Initially, I don't know if you'll remember this far back, but when the project was first planned, we submitted the entire project for a community crossings grant. And we were awarded $1 million, and then we didn't go forward with the project and we had to get the money back. Well, since then, the community crossings grant criteria have changed tremendously. So now our project doesn't even qualify. Maybe a part of the project might qualify, but if we were to do that, it would only likely be the street and maybe the stormwater, and we'd have to get Historic Preservation Office approval. So
do you know how much percent that would increase the cost?
I
mean, it might be worth it to postpone it a year.
Well, we did the I don't want to guess what those numbers are, because I won't get them right, and I can't remember. But we began the process. We hired, I can't remember what her title is, but our REA, our design team, hired an outside consultant, and we actually had one meeting, and I will say it wasn't very promising. They look at every detail, what the pavement looks like, what the concrete looks like, what the bricks on the building look like. Is any detail gonna change, and how much is it gonna change? And how many years has it looked the way it looks compared to what it's going to look like? I mean, it's
pretty long.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point of spreading it over, a couple of years or years, it's still the amount of money. It's like, a car salesman would say, well, I can finance for 72 months, it's still gotta be paid back. Somehow we gotta pay it.
Right.
And that worries me. I mean, the article that was in the Free Press, of the state of the city. I mean, the balances that the state of the city has is phenomenal. I mean, you've got to, I'll appreciate you, the whole city doing what they've been. I mean, these balances are, you'll be able to finance this project without any help from the county. I mean, as far as dollars are concerned.
Well, I would just say that while that is true right now, it's not the only project that we have in the hopper. We've got at least, a lot of projects, but I mean, we're talking about at least one project that's, several projects that are multi-million, but so while that's great, that's going to allow us to do things like hopefully improve Mill Street out to County Road, whatever that is, across from 47th Street, you know. I mean, those are projects improving 36th Street and going down to Ireland. Those are projects that are millions of dollars. And those are projects that we are going to seek grant dollars for. So it looks great, but you know, you gotta take into consideration, just like you are with your dollars, you know, what we've got planned. And as you all know, we've all been planning. We've got a comprehensive plan and a new transportation plan, and we've got the Du Bois County Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. So we've all been planning, and we have these things, and we don't participate in those planning exercises then to sit the plan on the shelf and let it collect dust. I mean, we are absolutely on every year. In fact, the mayor just scheduled a project prioritization meeting, which we have every year, and we go through all those plans and we reevaluate priorities. So those dollars are there, but we got plenty of projects for which those dollars can be used.
I appreciate that. I'm just saying, you know, just the same way, you know, that we're sitting here with the, you know, trying to get a sewer district created and,
right.
And you know, the millions of dollars that's gonna cost. And, you know, again, you can get grants and loans but you know, it still takes that base amount of money, which, you know, it worries me that we don't, you know, we don't have it, that it's gonna take to get this started. And I don't want, you know, I don't want some city to be shut down because, you know, that they don't have sewers, you know. So it's a, you know, it's a balancing act for, you know, for all of us and
yeah, and I understand that. The city understands that. We have been, and I think will continue to try at every stage on every project that we can to work collaboratively with the county. The regional sewer district is a great example of that. We've tried to participate as much as we can in that every step of the way to see what we can do to assist on the north side of town, because that's where the big problem is.
Even with our health grant, you know, we're gonna have to work together.
That's right.
You know, because it's something, you know, that we need your help if we're gonna, even on the sewer problem, you know, we're gonna need your help to get that in.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously I wish we had the printing press the government's got, you know, that we can, you know, you know, but it's not, you know, we have to make this work. So I don't know, do we need any more comments or?
Sounds like if we take what everybody suggested, it averages out to about $5 million.
We'll take it.
600.
500.
500,000, sorry, 500,000.
She's like, hey, I got a project.
500,000, sorry.
Sorry, Jade, your jail's done.
You know, I hadn't said exactly, but I kind of agree with that. I think 500 is fair. It kind of matches what we helped with for the Underwood projects. So I would put my vote at 500,000, including our improvement. That includes our improvements on our property. So, I don't know, we want to rediscuss it.
I think we have beat this horse till we can't beat it anymore.
And I propose, I mean, my thought is 2 years, pay the $250, you know, as soon as they sign the contracts, you know, and the $250 the following year. So.
I like the idea of a shorter time period also. We don't wanna, you know, I'm not gonna be here in the next, you know, however long it goes. I'm like, I don't wanna like put that on future councils.
When we make that third payment, we can say, well, Charmaine wanted to do it.
Don't even go
No,
there.
just kidding. I don't, do we wanna have a show of hands, or do, you know, or, I mean, is that all right, or you guys feel comfortable with where you're at, or?
Do we need to make a motion for the interlocal agreement? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so the interlocal, I think, needs to be approved with amounts, right?
Well, that's a commissioner thing, right?
They approved it, but pushed it to the
We
council
have
for,
to, we have to approve a dollar
funding.
amount and a term.
Thank you.
That's the two things. So anybody want to make a motion? Let's do it this way.
I move that we approve $500,000 over 2 years in the interlocal agreement.
So to be clear, it's 250 per year.
Yes.
And so we got a motion on the floor here for 500,000 total, 250 per year starting this year.
I'll second.
Okay, Becky seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks for all the work you're doing.
So Charmaine made that motion.
Yes.
Who seconded it?
Becky.
Becky.
Let's sleep tonight.
We'll see.
Okay, next additional appropriations, I think is what I have next.
Okay.
So, Sandy,
I'm about there. Hold on.
sorry.
Okay. I have, Bill Shaneyfelt was here discussing moving his part-timer to full-time at the end of the year last year. So what we've done is, I took what he's got that person at making $25,000 for the year, and I've added what we need to get them through the rest of this year. I took for 24 pays because we're already 2 down, so I didn't include money we didn't need this year. So to make the difference for the pay, I need $4,384.
So does everybody understand that? I have any questions on it? I have a motion then to approve that $4,384. Alex made the motion. Craig seconded. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed?
Okay. And then benefits for that, I would need an additional $3,626, and that's for FICA for the difference. And then perf, there was no perf for this position, so that's the 24 pays of perf. So $3,626.
Move we approve that
Okay,
appropriation.
Charmaine made a motion that we approve it. May I have a second?
No second.
Doug seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And then I would need all of the health insurance of $14,531.
So, may I have entertain a motion to approve that $14,531?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Becky made a motion to approve it. May I have a second?
I will.
Sonia seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's approved.
And of course, we need a salary ordinance to pay out this as a biweekly pay. The commissioners decided this position wasn't gonna be hourly, this one's gonna be a biweekly, then get comp time. So I have $1,224.30 biweekly.
Please repeat that.
$1,224.30 biweekly.
Thank you.
That's for a 35-hour week, and then they'll get comp time. They won't be like the other 2 girls who were grandfathered in as hourly and get paid for their time. Thank you.
So, everyone understand that? Any questions?
I move we approve it.
Okay, Charmaine made a motion that we approve it. May I have a second?
Second.
Alex seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So that carries.
And the left is the monument.
The courthouse monument maintenance, this is the new fund that you guys created from the community foundation that funds the monument. So we have $110,000 for the monument repair, and we'll come to you with the veterans part soon.
Is this the amount that the community credit?
The foundation gave us $135,000.
130, I thought.
And then, so we did the most with the monument because we got a lot of repairs on it. And it is historical, so we do have to make it,
Right, correct. I just wondered the difference between the 110 and what the foundation would be, so that's, what happens to the other part? Does that go into the,
it'll go into the Veteran Service Support Fund.
okay, thanks.
And then every year, they gave us that much this time, but every year they're estimating about 14,000 that we'll divide it up between our little two.
Okay, so, I entertain a motion to, this would be this would be a
It's an additional,
additional.
we've got the money, we just never appropriated it.
I'll make that.
Craig made a motion, yeah.
I'll second.
Second, Charmaine seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,
I did give you the list of encumbrances.
Yes, thank you.
The left-hand side is the funds and the encumbering that they had an invoice or a contract or whatever. The right side is grants that cross calendar years, so we have to encumber those to spend them down. The other sheet I gave you with the yellow on the bottom, that's the estimated amount of money that we'll have at the end of this calendar year. I mean, it's an estimate, so if we don't get the revenues we expected, or if we don't spend, that money could go higher or lower depending. But that when you do an additional appropriation out of these funds, the state uses those numbers.
Sam, who did you have as first and second for the 14,531? Or
Becky and Sonia.
Becky and Sonia,
If I have questions, Charmaine always knows.
What about what?
Who made the first and the second on the 14,531?
okay. I was just going a little quick for me.
I had Becky and Sonia.
Yeah, Becky's on.
okay, I think the next thing, and I just want to bring up, I don't think Becky had touched base with me on the, I think some of this came out of the Bois collaboration group, in the discussion, that thought we at least started this discussion on the use of the CNR funds.
Community solutions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got the minutes for that. I wasn't able to put on the internet that day. Couldn't get on but for that meeting. But I did get the minutes, and I guess that grant that the community corrections was looking for the social worker to help with the sheriff's department. That was not. We were not granted, or they did not receive that grant, or they were not, so I think, Becky, you want to speak a little bit, your thoughts on how we can, the CNR funds, I think we got a list of those, where, the amount of CNR funds that we have, and, we started that in, I kind of look back, we actually approved that on June 24th of 2019, that CNR tax. And so we collected from October, December of 2019, those 3 months. And then we collected from January to December of 2020. And we collected January to December of 2021. And Sandy informed me that I thought that, that came in at the end of the year, but she informed me that that is a monthly, that we get that money in monthly.
People started paying into it in October, but we didn't start getting money until that January. And then they take what they think they're gonna collect, or they do some formula, and then they divide that by 12, so we get that in 12 installments.
Okay. So, I mean, it's that money, I think it comes up to $4 million right now. We haven't really touched that. It will be used, when we start paying the bond back and the interest on that bond. So, it's not, there will be sufficient funds to do programming and, you know, that kind of thing. That's what we all talked about when we passed that we have additional money to do that. We have to remember though that money is gonna sunset, at 20 years, you know, you know, we have
So
to.
we basically have 2 years in then, accounting that, going back to that October, or that might be in there.
No, I think it starts,
Okay, so we have 18 years.
You know, so I mean, it's, you know, and then, you know, I think you and I discussed some, you know, we were thinking at some point, maybe to get a group together, you know, and have the people involved to do a long-term plan, you know, because I'm concerned, you know, Megan came in and, you know, we have to start picking up utilities. We have to, you know, after this Lilly grant phases out, that, you know, as a county here, we're gonna have to pick up those expenses. So, you know, it'd be nice to have a spreadsheet of some kind that we, you know, if we do this is gonna be, you know, these expenditures are gonna be there, that we can start doing our planning too. But I think we need their input on what does the county need. You know, I should probably, you know, you said your heart's in it. It is in all ours. You know, I think we all are wanting the same goal, and that's safety and programming. You know, all the things we talked about. So I mean, I don't know. And you had indicated maybe that you would help, maybe get this going. You know, to get the ball rolling on putting a long-term plan together.
Yeah. Versus them coming in every month and, you know, I think they all need to sit down and come up with their plans. So if somebody's one of those certified peer recovery specialists or something, you know, put down their needs. And so we constantly know what's for the best of the county, what we're getting the biggest bang for and everything. Versus this nickel and diamond coming in and we're like, you know, I think they need to be responsible for their plan of, you know, if it's treatment or I even thought, you know, on the interpreter, is that something that, you know, can some of those dollars be used? But to put that together and sort of put it on them a little bit. Mm-hmm. Did you come up with your strategy now for all this? Because those positions could change all the time too, like the face of this council will change. You know, so we have it set right now, not knowing exactly how much money or, you know, what we're even comfortable with, or, you know, to always keep enough for us that we aren't in a bind if something comes up through these years too. But I think for them to know, okay, we've got this amount of money, how best are we gonna do it? You know, through law enforcement, the courts, all those, if they're in some rehabilitation type services. And let them work on it. They're the ones, that's their expertise.
That's something we should, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
Should we maybe invite them at one of our meetings and tell them what we're after and tell them what we expect of them, that they take care of it, or they discuss and
But I think
create a
we
plan?
have to have a dollar amount in mind
To
that
tell them.
we're comfortable with saying, okay, we're good with this.
Right.
But I would like to include the phasing of that Lilly grant, you know, the phasing out of that Lilly grant, because we're gonna have to pick some of that up also.
You already are.
That in too.
Pardon me?
You started picking
Right.
stuff up this year.
Right, if it's 25% or.
Yeah,
you know,
that grows every
right,
year.
right. So I mean,
We're 100%.
But I think we have to think the other way in 20 years, 18 years, how are we phasing them out of it?
Yep.
Because it's gonna be gone.
yeah, that's a good point. So I didn't know, you know, if you wanna lead that with them a little bit, you know what I'm saying, to bring them in here, that's fine, we need to do that too. But I mean, to touch base with them. And I mean, my thought was, you know, Alex, you know, you're on that community corrections board. You know, that maybe, I don't know if you need help, you know, anybody here, but you know, I'd like to get some other people involved in it too, because it's
Sure.
To me, it's a task, it's a complicated task in some ways.
Yeah.
You know,
But I think that puts a little bit on them then versus just coming in and thinking, well, should pick this up, or say, no, this is your amount of money, you work it out with all you guys.
I think this is, to your point, I mean, if, oh, we have that, CNR tax, you can pick that up, that's easy, but if we line it out, this is how much we can budget out of there for, then it really helps to, keep us in our lane. Yeah. And everybody else to prioritize, like, what exactly are the priorities to use that money for.
And so we can show Du Bois County, this is what we've done with this, and these are the results that we're seeing. Or if something works, say a certified peer recovery specialist, and they're going, no, we didn't need them that much, or it didn't quite work out, then, okay, don't do it next year, whatever. But
so you're working on that house too.
Correct. Next step, recovery home, and so we're moving forward, or it feels like we're staying still sometimes though, but we're moving forward with a bit behind the scenes paperwork and everything. And right now we're looking to either buying a house to remodel or build. And I think our first choice is to build, but we're open to anything. And it's been it feels like a slow process, but we feel like we got to continue doing our paperwork behind the scenes so that when all of a sudden something comes up, we're ready to go. And that's what we're gearing towards. And recovery specialist is one of those. So it's a great project and takes some time, but I'm learning a lot about all it takes and learn about myself a little bit too. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And Chad, you were in on most of those meetings too. I just found it very helpful through the last 2 years of, sitting in on most of those were Zoom meetings then, but I was just amazed. It was like the perfect storm coming together for Du Bois County, that all these different stakeholders and getting them working together and everything. It's just, we're gonna have a lot of good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take on that, or I'm not saying Alex or whoever you pick who you need, because but I think we need to get it started and because I'm your skill, you know it, so I mean that's great if you be able to take that, at least get us started on it possibly.
Sure, be happy to.
And I think any financial information, I might be wrong, but it just seems like I always thought, need, what do you need, and then do we have the money to do it, not vice versa, that maybe I'm looking at it.
But that's why I say we set an amount, not to get us in trouble then, so we can continue if anything comes up, but, so.
When you set that amount, are we somewhat restraining them on their thought process of a 15-year plan? I'm throwing this up.
Then that's for them to come in and say, hey, work with us on this and we can get this done.
Yeah.
Or,
Either that's good. So let's if you don't mind, let's just kind of if you would take those.
If you don't mind hearing from Adam, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So what I think would be good for the county in this area, the state of Indiana has said that every county must have a JRAC, a Justice Reinvestment, I don't know what it all stands for. But there's a state version of this, and then there's one locally now. Alex is a member of it by appointment as the person from the county council. I'm on it for the county commissioners, and there are statutorily, it has to be the sheriff's or his designee. It has to be Jenny Lamper or designee the judges. So currently we've got both judges. We've got all of the stakeholders in that. What we're supposed to do with that is something similar to this. We're supposed to have a plan. We're supposed to study our current existing activities. We're supposed to say, are they working, or do we think they're working? Or what processes do we need to move our county forward? And that may be a venue that would have the council involved, that have the commissioners involved, and have every stakeholder involved already. My take on that would be, we say, come up with a 5-year plan. nobody can realistically plan any further than 2 years probably, but it's a fine idea to do a little bit longer than that. Year 4, you start planning for the next 5 years. Year 9, you plan for the last 5 years. And then that's when they can start begging the council to, we can't get rid of these things that we just, and here's why they're so valuable. And then those people at that time can say, we will find the funds to continue this, or tough, the well is run dry. So my suggestion would be, we put it on them. I like Councilwoman Beckman's idea with, you give them a dollar. And the way we can start that is our initial projections that were very conservative, said we're gonna have $900,000 of extra money every year over and above our debt service. So we say, start there, back it off, whatever we're comfortable with, in case we do want maybe a council or commissioner in 10 years says, we want to add another cell block, or we need to add something to community corrections, so that there still be funds there for that. So you don't spend all $900,000 every year, but you say, if we allotted you $600,000 a year, put a budget together, and what are your most critical needs? What will make the biggest impact? Because and that's what I said to them when they came to the council last year thinking, I don't remember exactly which ask it was, but I said, if there's limited dollars, so if you had only so much money to spend, would this be the thing that you'd want to spend it on? If it was, you have $100,000, is that ride along social worker to help? Is that the thing that you would use it on? And if they say yes, well, then you're telling us how valuable it is, but you're giving up something else by accepting the money for this. You only have, the pot is only so big. And I agree, we put it on the people, the main stakeholders. We said, give us a plan. How is it going to be measured? And you can come back every year and tell us how successful or not successful it's been. So sorry for my rant there, but I just think it's a fine way to proceed, and we've got the people in place. We're working on a mission and value, mission statement and bylaws and some of those things there. They said, we're creating this, but it shouldn't be any more work for you, and then they proceed to give you a bunch of work. So that's where we are with that project right now, but I appreciate you considering my thoughts.
Well, that right there is the group, so,
But what I do think, and I think I mentioned this to Mr. Gleesner, I don't like telling people their job, but I would say I'm going to anyway. It's your job to know what the money situation is, so I think if you look at it, you say, well, we have $900,000 per year projected. We're already spending $100,000 for these other positions on this Lilly grant. Once it's done, that leaves us $700,000. We're comfortable spending $600,000. I think it'll be y'all's job to find out what that amount is. As commissioners, I wouldn't want us to do that. So I think that would be your main role, and then we push it off on the JRAC.
what are you saying there?
JRAC. Justice Reinvestment, I don't know, I'm sorry, it's just like.
Coalition, what it stands for.
But the point of it is to make sure that the work that we're doing is evidence-based or evidence-informed, and it's not, an example that I always like giving, so that a former community corrections person would say is, well, we've got a garden in the back. That sounds good for the community. We're having criminals grow corn. There's no evidence to show that helps them not recommit crimes, or there's no community benefit to that other than it sounds good. So the decisions they're trying to make, they're trying to say there's science behind it. They look at it and it makes sense.
Who holds this JRAC accountable to measure these? That it's working, the evidence-based is working, like you're just saying.
That would be our job. I mean, for one, we could say that the string attached to this $500,000 a year is that you're going to have measurable goals that you're going to present within your plan. And if we say that it's okay to fund those, did our population go down in the jail from this amount to this amount? Whatever the metrics are, I guess you'd have to set those ahead of time so that people can be held
I'm
accountable.
just curious if the state level have any play in it.
I think the state, Du Bois County is a little further advanced than some counties in that the prosecutor, the judges, the sheriff, all of those people are already meeting on a regular basis to make sure that those people that are within that justice system are already meeting to make those, to collaborate to make the system as good as it can be, where there's other counties that everybody's in a silo and I'm gonna take care of my office and nobody else, I don't really care what anybody else is doing. So they're trying to say, work together. And we're already doing some of that. So they already had a JRAC, it just didn't include a council person and a commissioner. It was the people that are more hands-on.
And they already might have a pretty good idea of what they need to see, what they would like to see.
I have no doubt about that. I mean, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they already have a plan of what they'd like to see and how, you know, they don't want to restructure things or.
And again, I bet each one of those offices says, I could really use this. It would be a point for each of those offices to put forward their wish list.
The group that is here. So we can give some of the people that are on the phone, Joey Bridges, is also a good resource. I mean, I'm not trying to put her on there, I'm just saying. There's a lot.
I think it's a thoughtful way to move forward.
Well, thanks for your.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Do you want to introduce yourself? Sorry.
I can, yeah.
I've been sitting here all.
No, that's perfectly fine. My name is Dennis Hedro. I'm currently running for Becky Beckman's seat that she's going to be vacating. So I just wanted to kind of come and see firsthand what these meetings are like. If I do get elected, I want there to be zero transition or lag time or anything. I just want to get right back to work. So I've been reading up on minutes. I've been trying to show up more in the county and go and meet different directors of different organizations. So yeah, I'm extremely interested in local politics. I really, really do believe that this is way more important than what happens at the state level or at the national level, because this is what we see each other every day, and this is where we live at. So just wanted to say hi. Very nice to meet all you guys.
Yeah, thank you for
Hang out with us.
Absolutely.
Very dynamic.
The next thing I'd like to do is set the meetings at least through the first part of the year here. You tell me if it doesn't work or if it does work. I'd say March 28th is our next, the next schedule, or we got a February 28th meeting. March 28th, does that work for everyone? March 28th. Okay, tell me no if it doesn't. April 25th.
I think, yeah.
Yes.
Ready?
Hold on. Sorry.
April 25th.
Yeah.
Everybody ready? May 23rd. Memorial Day is on the 30th. So May
It still falls on the fourth
Pardon me?
Monday. It's still the fourth Monday then. We got the extra Monday set.
May 23rd. And I got June 27th.
And we want to talk about salary increase in May, right? Because they're going to have their budget forms turned in.
July 1.
Yeah, at the end. We're going to have that done prepared.
June 27th, everybody okay with that? Then I got July 25th.
I will be gone that day.
You will be?
I will be in Florida.
What's the,
If we do the 18th, that makes it commissioner on top of it.
Design maybe, give applications into Calvin.
I'm scheduled to be in Cincinnati, having fun at the hospital.
Is there a problem? I mean, what you're saying is just the same day, but that doesn't really matter, but that's the July 18th.
For 2 meetings in the same day?
What about?
Well,
But, I mean, if I can, yeah, I cannot, I definitely cannot be here on.
Oh, okay.
Can you be
Oh,
there?
that's understood.
Day?
Oh,
Yeah.
Could it be a different day of the week?
Well, like I'll be up there for 2 days straight, so even the Tuesday won't work. And I have plans that Wednesday and Thursday, if that's any.
So that week's not gonna work.
So you'll be gone, Sandy, the whole week on the 25th, so.
Is it okay to have?
Blame my mother. She did it. Blame my mother.
Oh, no. You gotta have time.
Daytime.
I think if Mary could be here.
Or whoever.
Oh,
you
I'm
choose.
sure somebody did.
Possibility.
I'm just telling you, I'll be gone that day.
Yeah.
So.
Sure, plan on lights agenda.
60% of
So,
what,
Yeah.
July 20 manager.
I mean, if we, otherwise we gotta push it almost to the 11th, then that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Mary can come. And just check with her.
we made, so it's gonna be July 25th, works for everybody right now.
It works for me.
Is that okay? Okay, well, let's just do that and then,
You want to set the budget day? The 8th?
that I didn't want to set because I didn't know that we would,
Right.
you know. but-
It's better to say, I mean, if I can book the room and get this full, I mean, it's easier to book ahead.
Well, it's gotta be the 8th, probably because the commissioners are gonna be the first and the 15th.
They will be the first and the 15th,
So it's
so.
gotta be the
August
8th.
8th, is that all right?
Right, it's gotta be. Right?
Yeah.
Have a wellness check that week.
It'll be down by that. It'll be down by that.
It won't be that anticipatory.
Will that be your only meeting for August then? Or will you have another
I
one?
don't know, we normally do. Remember if we have another one. I mean, we don't need to set it, as long as we set budget. If we need another, we can wait till next month.
And then I would assume, in October, we'll do the adoption and all that on the same kind of dates.
I will say that it might be helpful to schedule like a regular meeting in August because budget day gets so busy that we don't want to have to cram.
I think that's what we always did.
Plus we're having another, our regular meeting before that is only 2 weeks before. So I mean, to actually get any other additionals.
It takes about 3 weeks to get them to the paper, and then you got 2 week, 10-day lag time there. It has to be at least 10 days before.
We do all this, we can set up this 29th.
On the 22nd, it'll be the 4th. Whatever.
I mean, 22nd, so
I don't prefer to this. If there's that extra Monday in August, we could do the last one, you know?
well, that's what I'm saying, there, give us 29th, but you said it.
It'll spread it out a little bit.
Does August 8th and 29th work? August 8th would be the full day budget day. And then the 29th would be our regular meeting.
We're halfway. Keep it going. Want to keep going, Mike?
Then August, September would be just a regular meeting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
the agenda.
August 8th and
29th, does that work?
29th.
So if he's early, that's group set up.
That's the 8th, that's like my first day of school.
You don't really have a choice on that unless you do the 22nd, because commissioners have this room that meet the 1st and the 15th. They have first and third Monday every month.
Then we can't,
Their
we can't do it any earlier than August.
Well, we already have the 8th, you know, it seems like we want to spread it out a little bit from this meeting.
We couldn't do the week before, like Tuesday or Wednesday. Starting on the 3rd.
I don't know, don't you have a problem?
My thing is that I try to always meet with the field rep before I see you guys. And he's usually the week of Strassenfest, which is that week before.
Let's digest this and then
Okay, so
we got a few months, then we can set the rest of the year.
Okay.
That's kind of what we did last year, worked out.
So is the 8th gonna work or not?
It works for me. Doug's having.
Works for me,
But it's just like right the first day of school for us. And that's really tough to miss that first couple days or whatever anyway. It's just a strain on some things, but.
Because we can't really do it later, not much later, right? you definitely.
Well, I was thinking
Well,
earlier.
the 1st and the 15th, the commissioners have this room, so you
Right.
can't do those days.
Right, but what I was saying is we definitely cannot do it earlier.
I would think no, because we don't even certify values or anything until that week before.
Right. I mean, there's just all the other stuff that has to happen before.
It's hard to set
And then you guys have to have time to even like build
Right.
the budget book and all that.
And we're changing the budget book this year, so it's even more
No,
work.
we're not changing, we're enhancing it.
Yes, there you go.
Enhancing.
We're making changes.
Oh,
Changes.
I prefer
Changes
enhancement.
takes
No, I
time.
mean,
It's, you know.
it's just gonna change some things, so we have to take time for that.
So let's just, I mean, the 8th and the 29th are okay. In August, let's then set the rest of the year out. Let's give it a month or so here. That's okay with you.
That's fine.
Unless somebody's got a big vacation planned or something.
Oh, you know me, we make
I got a
it
baby
4
coming
months
in
a
July.
I mean, I
So good. It's like, yeah, wow. That's awesome.
I don't even know.
I'm just so proud of her.
So, any other, that's all that I had. Anybody's got anything else or any discussions, other discussions we want to have? I think the sheriff, I always report on the jail, it's going well, and I did, thinking for myself, because time slips away sometimes, but we started that jail, we broke ground on the project up there, June 1st of 2021. I think, after we got the contracts awarded, and the first phase of the housing pod, according to their thing, is gonna be completed in late July, 1st of August. The pot, so that would be the movement of the, if they do decide to phase that and move the community corrections over there, so. But then, it was projected to be a 30-month project, so we don't got time here yet. So, what we've got accomplished, I think, is pretty amazing,
If you guys have not been up there, Mike gave me a little brief tour up there the other day when I was up there for the jail progress meeting, and it is worth seeing. It changes every time I go up there, and I go up there, maybe every 6 weeks. It's amazing to me.
So when it's done, and there's like the grand opening or whatever y'all do, you have to make sure and invite me, okay?
Yeah.
Yes. Do we want to get a group together?
Oh, I'm definitely going to, yeah.
Can we only do 3? Is that how it's gonna be?
Oh, surely.
I don't
No,
know.
I don't know,
I'm
think on the.
If you do, if you ever come to the jail progress meeting, that's their called meeting, you can just show up.
Yeah, and that would probably be a better day because, it would be nice to have the contractor, he's there and Sharman's there every time.
What day do you guys meet?
It's every other Wednesday at 10 a.m.
So it would start.
And it was just this week, so.
So it's not this Wednesday, but next week.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so the 2nd.
I think they- so let me see here.
I'll just rearrange my schedule with my person.
Yeah, the next one is February 2nd. So every 2 weeks from there. So, we don't have to do it, it's kind of, how should I say, it's not the most desirable time to go there right now.
Well, it's muddy and
Well, it can be very
but-
cold.
and it's cold, but
I think if we would wait at least to the second meeting in February, probably the 16th, would probably be a better time.
Better.
Can always be.
It's, I don't know.
well,
It always depends how much you want to
I
talk
mean,
about.
you kind of listen to them talking. I always sit in the back and we kind of listen to the contractors, and then after they're finished, which takes maybe 20, 30 minutes, then we go and then they take me up and show me.
Yeah, how long do the meetings last?
Well, a lot of times they last about, 45 minutes. It
It depends. The last one was maybe 20, 25 minutes.
So if I show up at 10:30, that'd be okay?
Yeah.
Because I won't add.
The only thing we need to think about is technically, you're supposed to have hard hats on. So I gotta talk with Cramp or somebody to get us extra hard hats, just because.
Yeah, I didn't have one last time.
We kind of just snuck inside and looked, and we walked through the health department and all that, in the kitchen, we walked through those areas which nobody was around, and opened
The medical department, the medical rooms.
They're doing a lot of overhead work.
Okay.
But I could talk to Trent and ask him if they could get us.
I mean, I can find one, I know where I can get one,
Okay,
I'll bring them on. Let's see,
you're a woman of the world, you know.
I just get things done. If I need a hard hat, I'll go get me one, I wanna go see that thing.
Yeah, no, it is
The
worthwhile.
pods and everything, I mean, I was interested to see those, and
I wanna inspect our investment for, my constituents.
Yes, yes.
So this would be
So tentatively, the
24, is that what, is that how it's supposed to be finished?
2022 is this year, so I
Oh.
think you're 2023, and then isn't that supposed to be like, I thought it was supposed to be like the end of the year of 2023.
yeah, because we start paying in 24.
Okay.
I think, it all depends if we run, but with this move, it may move faster if they can get all the material, with this
Yeah.
switch and
Yeah, if they
phase.
don't have to, construct something and then
Move it
deconstruct.
twice, kind of moving it twice,
That's a smart idea.
so it's.
So what are they doing?
They decided, I think, you left right before you came, but
They
they're
had
talking
a
about
meeting
phasing it different. They were gonna move the community corrections into the old jail, move the inmates of the jail into the new pod, but now they're thinking about moving community corrections people into the new pod, so they don't have to move twice, because, so.
Might be good for recidivism reduction too. Hey, I don't wanna end up in here.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, to me, they look like a prison cell, that's what they look like.
So but I'll put tentatively on the 16th. And then, so they know, naturally, the big 5 rain and snow.
Yeah. Mike.
Wear not good shoes.
I'll wear my boots.
I think that's all I have. Anybody else have anything?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Alright.
All in favor?
Oh, I thought those were
Three and a half hours.
I forgot to put my stack on the way here. I mean, I'll have to go back to work.
The next one,
I've been trying to.
March 28th, no, February
I've been
28th.
up drinking like every
It's okay,
day,
it's the
so I'm
last
trying to
Monday
drink
of
effective week. So I'm drinking a lot of water.
I guess I go ahead and sign since, even though I wasn't here last week.
Yes.
They tell me that you should.
I gotta rush my thing because the thing's gonna go.
So this year, starting
There's the
January 1, 2 Pepsis a week. So I'm trying to, because there's
You got a cold?